Hello friends. This is Marvel Fiction. How are you all? So in this video, we will see, what if Spider-Man become the Gurdian of Marvel Universe? But before we start, if you want more amazing stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Also, if possible, share this video with your friends. Now without wasting any more time, let's begin the story. Peter Parker was bored. He was suffering from being too good at his job. All of his major nemesis were locked away. He didn't even have one single lesser henchman to fight. School was out too, so he couldn't even go to work. He tried to earn some extra cash by taking some photos for the Daily Bugle, but there wasn't anything remotely interesting happening. That was, he was chilling in his apartment with his beautiful wife. "You know, Tiger, you really don't have to spend your free time with me," MJ said as she snuggled closer to her husband. "I'm sure there must be some evilness afoot." "The perils of being the best at what I do, I suppose," Peter replied as he kissed the top of MJ's head. "Don't you think Wolverine's gonna be pissed when he hears that you're ripping off his phrases? I pity the fool that thinks his phrases not rip-offable. That isn't even a word, sweetie. It is now. I know something that we can do to keep ourselves occupied," MJ purred seductively. "You're insatiable, you know that," Pete replied. "I don't hear you backing down," MJ said as she nibbled Peter's ear. "I suppose that I can muster the energy to pleasure my wife," Peter sighed. "Good boy," MJ replied as she straddled him and began to kiss him. Peter was about to carry MJ into the bedroom when the sound of sirens came from outside their apartment. MJ muttered a curse and stopped kissing her husband. "I know, evil is afoot," she sighed. "Go do your stuff." "Thanks, MJ," Peter replied as he rushed to get on his Spidey gear. "Don't worry about me," MJ pouted. "I'll just be here, in the apartment, alone." "If you're bored, why don't you go shopping?" Peter asked from the bedroom. "You always found that therapeutic." "I haven't been to Bloomie's for a fair while," MJ replied. "Not since it mysteriously blew up." "Well, I'm ready for the off," Peter said as he stepped out of the bedroom in his Spidey outfit. "Enjoy your shopping trip, Kay." "See you later, Tiger," MJ replied as she lifted up Peter's mask and gave him a kiss. "Buy me something pretty." "Actually, I was hoping you'd buy me something pretty," Pete replied. "Like sexy lingerie?" MJ asked with a smirk. "Can't blame a guy for trying," Peter replied as he shot out a webline. "Ta-ta." And that just left MJ alone in her apartment. Now where did Peter put that credit card? Connery's jewelry shop. Spider-Man followed the sounds of the sirens to Connery's jewelry shop in the Bronx. He perched up on a roof and saw a wall blast outwards. Then the Shocker walked out with a bag full of miscellaneous gems and whatnot. The police tried to shoot at him, but he blasted them with a vibro wave. "This is too easy," he chuckled to himself as he blew up a random squad car. "Famous last words, Sparky," Spidey replied as he swung down and planted a meaty dropkick to the Shocker's face. "Why is it always you?" the Shocker hissed as he got up off his butt. "Now look what you've made me do. I've dropped my stash now." "Let me get that for you," Spidey replied as he shot out a webline and snagged the bag. "Here ya go," he said as he spun it around and smacked the Shocker upside the head with it. "Damn it. Stop screwing around." "I'll stop screwing around when you stop being a loser in a quilt," Spidey replied as he webbed the Shocker's gauntlets. "Get this crap off me, if you say so," Spidey replied as he tugged on the webline, pulling the Shocker forward. "I'll kill you for that," the Shocker hissed. "You won't be the only one to try," Spidey replied as he flipped backwards and landed on a hot dog cart. The Shocker just let out a yell of rage and blasted the hot dog cart, showering the surrounding area with artificial meat products and salty brine. "Oh yeah, thanks for that," Spidey muttered as he brushed a hot dog off his suit. "Do you have any idea difficult it is to get rid of hot dog smell?" "Raw," the Shocker yelled as he tried to blast Spidey again. Spidey simply flipped up into the air and landed on top of a lamppost. "Been taking eloquence from the Hulk, I see. Gonna fry ya." "Bored now?" Spidey yawned as he shot out a glob of webbing into the Shocker's face. "Son of a," the Shocker hissed as he grabbed his face in an attempt to tear away the webbing. "Candygram for Mr. Mongo," Spidey said as he hefted up the now empty hot dog cart. "What the hell?" The shocker said as he finally tore away the webbing from his face, just in time to see Spidey throw the hot dog cart at him. He tried to blast it, but his gauntlets had been damaged in the fight. Aw crap. Later, after the police had taken away the unconscious Shocker, Spider-Man decided that it was time to go back and check on his wife. He was presently swinging across New York on his way back to his apartment when he heard a scream. No rest for the wicked Buff. He muttered as he swung down to go check it out. Spidey initially thought that the scream belonged to a woman, but upon landing on a nearby wall he saw that the scream had in fact come from a thief. What was unusual about it was the fact that the thief was being chased by what seemed to be a werewolf. A werewolf wearing ripped jeans, a white vest and a leather jacket. Spidey watched as the werewolf caught up with the thief and tackled him to the ground. The thief let out a yell of pain as the werewolf punched him in the face and snatched back the purse that he had stolen. That should teach ye never to steal from a not-so-defenseless wee lassie. The werewolf snarled as it changed back into its human form, the form of Randy Sinclair, the leader of the uncanny new mutants known as Wolfsbane. Nice going there, Red. Spider-Man said as he gave the young mutant a round of applause. I hope you don't mind if I take him off your hand. Help yourself. Wolfsbane replied with a shrug. I was kinda glad to get the exercise actually. I thought you X-types usually hang around Westchester. Spidey said as he webbed up the thief. Aren't you kinda out of your natural habitat? Who were ones that took down that toxin lass while ye were brawlin' Venom? She asked with a smug look on her face. Damn feminists. Spidey muttered as he finished webbing the thief to the wall. Well, see you around. And with that, Spidey swung off to go check up on MJ. Peter Parker and his wife MJ were in their local video store trying to choose some rentals. Peter wanted a generic action movie a la Die Hard, or a screwball comedy a la Bruce Almighty, but MJ was set on a girly romantic comedy, something like Bridget Jones' Diary. Peter was trying to convince his wife that his choices would have been better. Come on MJ, please? Peter begged. I don't want to watch that movie again, it's lame and demeaning towards men. MJ just stood there with her arms crossed over her chest. You're not going to sway my choice, Tiger. I'm going to watch Bridget Jones' Diary, no matter what. Peter just gave MJ his best puppy dog look, all wobbly lip and big, wide eyes. I'm not gonna cave in. MJ replied as she turned her head. I'm not. Peter stepped forward, still with the puppy dog face. You know what, Tiger? You can be so immature sometimes, MJ groaned. Does that mean we can get my choice of movies? Peter asked hopefully. No, MJ replied, bursting Peter's bubble. I am fed up of seeing Bruce Willis running around in a dirty vest and Jim Carrey acting like a loony, again. Nuts. Peter pouted as he slunk back towards the action section. He was passing the adult section when his spider sense went off. He moved out of the way just in time to see a Hawaiian shirt-clad bald guy trip over and spill his rental choices all over the floor. Well, looky what we got here, Peter said with a satisfied smirk on his face. Come to stock up on your IC. Wad E. Wilson picked himself up off the floor and swore to himself as he saw Peter in front of him. Ah damn it. Peter looked at one of the titles on the floor and his grin grew even more. Lusty Swedish Big Ones, Not exactly Oscar material but a good choice nonetheless. Wade opened his mouth to say something but couldn't think of anything to say, so he pointed out of the window. Look, an elephant. Peter turned his head to look out the window but didn't see any elephant. Once he turned back to tease Wade again, the merc with a mouth had gone. Damn it. Peter cursed to himself, angry that he had been fooled by such an easy trick. Later Peter and MJ were on their way home from the rental store. They had both reached a compromise and chose to rent Finding Nemo instead. They had just reached a taxi stop when Peter's spider sense went off once more. Peter pulled MJ out of the way just in time to see Morbius the living vampire swoop above their heads. What seemed unusual about Peter's sometime enemy was the fact that he wasn't hunting. He was the one being hunted. This much was evident as someone, or something, leapt of the roof and tackled him to the ground. Morbius's attacker didn't look human in the least. It had gray skin that hardly stretched over its bones. It had straggly black hair sprouting from its head. Its mouth was full of needle-sharp fangs and it had horrific blood-red eyes. There were also two bony wings protruding from its shoulder blades. "Time to go to work," Peter said as he shot MJ an apologetic look. "I suppose that we'll have to watch the movie another time." "Don't worry, Tiger," MJ replied. "You just go to work, okay?" Peter gave his wife a jaunty salute and ducked into a nearby alley to change into his work clothes. After a quick change, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man was back in business tracking down Morbius and his attacker. Spider-Man followed the sounds of hissing and fighting to the top of a church's spire. Where else? Once he got a better look at Morbius's attacker, he was certain that it wasn't human. Apart from the fang-filled mouth and the blood-red eyes, it had the pointed ears and squashed-up nose of a bat. He could also see that it was female, judging from the lady bumps that it had. "Okay kiddies, out of the pool," Spidey said as he perched atop the weather vane. "Remember the rules, no bombing, no eating and no heavy petting." The female bat thing turned to look at Spidey and hissed angrily. "Oh, let me guess, lover's tiff?" Spidey asked. "Or women's troubles?" The bat creature forgot about the unconscious Morbius and leapt at Spider-Man. Spidey barely had enough time to leap out of the way as the bat creature's claws slashed a deep gauge into the spire. "You could have somebody's eye out with those things," Spidey said. "That was the general idea," the bat creature hissed. The sudden revelation that the bat creature could talk knocked Spidey through a hoop and barely gave him enough time to dodge another slash from the creature's deadly claws. Although it was a glancing blow, Spidey still hissed in pain as the creature's claws raked down his back. "My mother always warned me about girls like you," Spidey taunted, trying to ignore the pain in his back. "You interrupted my hunt," the bat creature hissed. "No matter, you smell like a much more satisfying meal anyway." "No thanks, I've already eaten," Spidey replied as he somersaulted out of the way again. "I never eat when I'm working, gives me terrible gas." "Insufferable insect. What is it with you bad guys?" Spidey groaned. "A spider is an arachnid, not an insect." Before Spider-Man could get out another witty remark, the bat creature leapt at him so quick that he couldn't move out of the way. The ensuing collision sent both of them tumbling from the spire, down towards the ground below. As much as I'd love to end up squished on some guy's windshield, I'll have to say adieu. Before the bat creature could tighten her grip, Spider-Man shot out a webline and swung away. The bat creature hissed in anger as she landed on a dumpster with a clang. She looked up at where her dinner had gone and roared angrily at the sky. The spider could wait for another night. Back home after taking Morbius into custody, Peter decided to call it a night and return back home. He was halfway through the window of his apartment when his wounds got the better of him and he fell straight into his face. MJ came running up to him and helped him to his feet. "Oh God, Peter. What happened to your back? It looks like you lost a fight against a cheese grater." "I bumped into Morbius's newest gal pal." Peter winced as he limped towards the first aid box and grabbed some disinfectant and bandages. "She's kinda grabby." "What happened to her? Is she still out there?" "Yeah, she fell on a dumpster when we were fighting," Peter replied as he put the disinfectant on his wounds. MJ saw what trouble he was having and walked over to do it for him. "MJ, that's all right. I can do it myself," Peter said as he backed away from the redhead. "Besides, you sting." "Oh, don't be a baby," MJ replied as she advanced towards him. "I'll kiss you better." "Sorry, babe," Peter replied with an apologetic smile. "I don't think I'd be much good for that tonight, seeing that my back's been turned into burger meat." "Spoil my fun," MJ pouted, "but you're still gonna let my disinfect those wounds." Peter leapt over the couch to avoid his wife, but his injuries being the way they were, he lost his footing and banged his head on the coffee table. "Oh God, Peter. I'm so sorry," MJ gasped as she raised her hand to her mouth in shock. "'S'all right lady," Peter slurred. "I'll be here all night, try the veal." Peter woke up with a groan. It was time to get to school. Mary Jane was snoozing blissfully beside him. She always was a heavy sleeper. Peter reluctantly swung his legs over the side of the bed and hissed in pain. His injuries from the fight with the bat creature a few days previous were still tender. He sighed dramatically as he made his way over to the bathroom. "'S'all right for some," he sniffed. "Some of us have to work." As if she heard his botching, Mary Jane rolled onto her side and mumbled something incoherent. "Pedro, the piñata's dripping. Peter just shook his head at his wife's mumblings and made his way to the bathroom. Later Peter had finished his shower and was brushing his teeth when he felt somebody put their hands around his eyes. "Guess who, Tiger?" Tigra covered in chocolate sauce," Pete asked hopefully. "You wish," Mary Jane replied as she swatted him on the arm. Pete yelped and grabbed his arm in pain. "MJ, careful, I'm still tender." "Oh, don't be such a baby," MJ said with a roll of her eyes. "You might bad guys almost every other day and you don't make a peep. Swat you on the arm and you start crying like an X-Man with a thing for telepaths." "One. Shouldn't you be getting ready for your job interview?" Peter asked, hastily changing the subject. "What's with all the secrecy anyway? You're not joining SHIELD or anything, are you?" "No, I'm joining Hydra," MJ replied nonchalantly. "Please tell me that you're joking," Peter said, unsure whether to take that as a joke or not. "You are joking, right?" MJ just shot her husband a knowing look and stepped into the shower. Peter was actually on time for school for once and he was on his way to his first and only lesson of the day. He had the rest of the day free, so he was planning on taking an early afternoon swing through the city before heading back home. Peter had almost made it to his class when he heard the sounds of a fight nearby. It sounded as if a group of people were singing the music to the old Batman TV show. Peter let his spider sense lead him in the direction of the fight and found a bunch of girls bullying a petite goth girl. "Okay, that's it girls, break it up," Peter said. "Don't make me call the principal. What was all that about?" It was nothing," the goth girl replied with a British accent. "Some people just don't appreciate the wonders of Chioptera like I do." "You mean bats, right?" Peter asked. "I'm kinds hazy on my animal classification, but I think that's what it means." The goth girl visibly cheered up a bit. "It's nice to see somebody that isn't an ignoramus." "Yeah, I used to be a geek at school too," Peter replied. "Not that you'd be able to tell nowadays." "Oh, you still look like a nerd," the goth girl replied with a smile. "You can't outgrow that kind of stuff." Peter couldn't help but notice that something was amiss as his spider sense was tingling. He just let it go and smiled at the girl's kind-hearted teasing. "So, where you heading?" I'm supposed to be going to Mr. Parker's chemistry class. I'm new here so I don't really know my way about." "You're in luck then," Peter said. "I'm Mr. Parker. Anna Gordon," the goth girl said as she held out her hand. "Nice to meet you, Anna," Peter said as she shook the girl's hand. "I hope you enjoy your stay at the school." "Oh, I'm sure that it isn't so bad," Anna replied as she followed Peter to his class. What Peter didn't notice that Anna's eyes seemed to turn red for a moment before turning back to their usual green. Later Peter's class has finished and he was about to make his way home when his spider sense went off once more. It seemed to be one of those kinds of days. Peter narrowly managed to dodge a figure that haphazardly barged past. "Excuse me, sorry," the figure said. Peter's jaw dropped as he saw who the figure was. "MJ, what are you doing here?" Mary Jane gave her husband an embarrassed smile. "Remember that job interview I said I had? It was for a position as a substitute teacher, surprise?" "I think we need to talk," Peter replied as he ushered his wife outside the school. A nearby cafe. Peter and Mary Jane were sitting opposite each other in a nearby cafe discussing the latest turn of events. "It's not that I don't love you," Peter said. "But, why choose a job at the same school that I teach at?" "I wanted to go to a place that I felt more familiar with," MJ replied. "The modeling jobs have dried up recently, so I decided to get a job to tide me by." "But it's not right," Peter said. "Haven't you read that bit in the Bible? Thou shalt not mooch thy husband's job." "Whoa there, Homer Simpson," MJ said as she put her hand on top of Peter's. "Is there anything wrong in me working in the same place as you? Reed and Susan Richards do it all the time." "That's because they're the Fantastic Four," Peter replied. "It's completely different." "You're just saying that because you don't want me seeing all those cute students that all have a crush on you," MJ replied with a cheeky grin. "They don't have a crush on me, do they?" Peter asked, his curiosity piqued. "You wish. Ya perv," MJ snickered. "Now come on, give your wife this one, okay? Is it asking that much?" "No dear." Peter sighed reluctantly. It was obvious that he wouldn't win this one. "Besides, if we both have free periods we could always check out the utility closet," MJ said with a cheeky grin. An equally cheeky grin spread on Peter's face as he realized what she was saying. "Man, I love it when you're dirty," Peter said as he leant forward to plant a kiss on his wife's lips. MJ followed suit and leant forward to meet him. Their lips were mere inches apart when Peter's spider sense went nuts. "MJ, down!" Peter yelled as he dived on top of Mary Jane, knocking them down to the ground just in time as a car smashed through the cafe window. 2. "MJ, are you all right?" Peter asked as he slowly got up. "Yeah, I'm fine," MJ replied as she got up off the ground and dusted herself off. "You go to work." Peter nodded in reply and went to get changed into his Spidey gear. Outside, Peter changed into his Spidey gear just in time to see Dr. Octopus smashing up the surrounding area. It was obvious that he was the one that threw the car through the window. "Long time no see, Doc," Spidey said as he landed on a nearby lamppost. "Why the sudden tantrum? They canceled Teletubbies again." "Accursed spider," Ock snarled as he tried to swat Spidey away with one of his tentacles. Fortunately, Spidey was too quick and dodged out of the way. "Why is it always accursed spider? Why not cuddly spider or quite nice actually spider? I am in no mood for your ill attempts at humor, Spider-Man." "Why, that time of the month again?" Spidey asked as he webbed up Ock's face. "You forget to take your happy pills again?" Ock yelled in fury and ripped the webbing from his face. "You have upset my plans for the last time. Been there, done that." Spidey yawned. "What's the score so far?" 55-0. "Come on, Ock. Give it up, you're a loser." Ock yelled in fury once more and sent his tentacles after Spider-Man. Fortunately for Spidey, they never reached their intended target as Ock was knocked to the ground by another familiar face. It was the bat creature that Spidey fought not all that long ago. "The spider is mine," the bat creature hissed. "Get in my way and I'll tear out your spine." "You will pay for this, whoever you are," Ock hissed. "I will be the one to kill Spider-Man." "So be it," the bat creature replied as she flashed her fangs in an evil smile. "You'd better make your peace before I end your paltry life." Before Ock could even raise one tentacle in defense, the bat creature leapt at him in astonishing speed and seized his tentacles. She then spun him around and around before letting him go, sending him smashing through a wall. She then leapt in after him, prepared to rip him to shreds. Spidey followed suit. "Dr. Octopus may be a bad guy, but there's no need to be ripped to shreds." "Okay kids, out of the pool," he said as he webbed the bat creature to the wall. "What's the hubbub, bub?" The bat creature just hissed in reply and struggled to get free. "Damn you, Spider-Man," Ock yelled as he tore himself out of the webbing. "You can quit it too, Mr. Shouty Pants," Spidey replied as he shot a line of webbing at a nearby hot dog cart and sent it in Ock's direction. Ock tried smashed the cart to pieces but was still covered with brine. He howled in pain as it blinded him. "This isn't over, Spider-Man," he yelled. "You may have won this time, but you can mark my words that I will be back." "Man, some guys are such bad losers." Spidey sighed as Ock made his escape before he could be webbed again. "Now to see what your problem is, Missy," he said as he made his way over to the bat creature. Before he could even lay one finger on her, the bat creature tore free of the webbing and knocked Spidey to the floor. "This is the last time you disturbed my dinner, Spider," she hissed. "You will make a suitable replica." The bat creature's boasts were cut off as her eyes rolled back into her head and she collapsed onto the wall crawler. "Geez. Somebody needs to cut back on the vamp burgers," Spidey groaned as he lifted the bat creature off him. Then, much to Spidey's amazement, the bat creature began to change back into a human. It wasn't just any normal evildoer, however. The bat creature was Anna Gordon, the same student that he met earlier. In the prestigious area of New York known as Greenwich Village, there was a house belonging to an expert on matters of the occult. This person was Dr. Steve Strange, aka the Sorcerer Supreme Dr. Strange. Like regular doctors, Strange made house calls, but this time he had a guest. "So, what's the what, Doc?" Spider-Man asked from atop his makeshift webbing chair. "Is this girl a vampire, mutant, or a figment of my imagination brought on by too much blue cheese?" "From what I have been able to ascertain, this young woman is human," Strange replied. "But I can sense a large concentration of magical energy emanating forth from her person." The person that Spider-Man and Dr. Strange were talking about was laying out on a table before them, She was Anna Gordon, a student of Peter Parker, Spider-Man's civilian identity. Spider-Man was here to see the good doctor, as young Miss Gordon also had the ability to change into a bat-like creature. It was in this guise that she had fought Spider-Man several nights previous. "Do you think it's some kind of curse?" Spider-Man asked. "Or did she do this to herself?" "The Eye of Agamotto will not grant us the answers that we wish instantly," Strange replied. "We must wait." "Oh great, I left a pie in the oven too." Spider-Man sighed. "It's going to be ruined. I'll never win the bake sale now." Strange merely ignored the wall crawler's comments and continued trying to find out more about the mysterious teenager. Strange stopped his efforts once he heard Anna groan slightly. "It's alive! It's alive!" Spider-Man bellowed as he jumped out of his web chair and flung his arms into the air. "Oh God! Where am I?" Anna groaned. Anna's vision gradually cleared and she could make out two figures standing over her. One had a neatly trimmed beard and had hair with graying temples. He was wearing some kind of blue tunic and a yellow cloak with a high collar. The other figure was dressed head to toe in a red and blue costume, complete with a mask over his face. "Oh no, it happened again," Anna gasped as she sat up straight. "You do know what happened to you, right?" Spider-Man asked. Anna merely nodded ashamedly. "Yeah, I got a little out of control. I'll say." Spider-Man snorted. "You turned into a giant bat thing and slashed claw marks down my back the size of the Grand Canyon." "Oh God, I'm in trouble, aren't I?" Anna groaned. "Of course not, young lady," Strange replied. "You have not harmed any innocents. We merely wish to help you with your affliction." "That's putting it politely." Anna snorted. "The thing inside me is a bloody curse. Most people say that when they find out that they're mutants." Spider-Man replied. "It's nothing to be ashamed of. Some of my friends are mutants." "I'm not a mutant," Anna corrected him. "This thing is a family curse." "Would you care to tell us about it?" Strange asked. "Well, it doesn't look like I'm going anywhere in the immediate future," Anna sighed. "I'll start from the beginning." Sorry to interrupt," Spider-Man said as she held up his hand. "But is this gonna be a long story? 'Cause I really have to pee." One quick potty break later, once Spider-Man had done his business, Anna continued with her story. "My name is Anna Gordon and I'm originally from Manchester, England. My family haven't always lived in Britain, however. My great-grandparents moved there during the Second World War from Romania, where the family name was originally Gordonia. My family come from a long line of gypsies living in the Romanian mountains not far from Transylvania. The Gordonia women were taught witchcraft from birth while the men were taught how to fight. This is most unusual," Strange said. "I have traveled all over the world and met many different races, but I have never met these gypsies that you speak of. My relatives knew how to keep themselves hidden," Anna replied. "Hiding was essential if my relatives were to survive living so near to Transylvania." "I think I know where this is going," Spider-Man said. "Some relatives went a cropper of a certain count, right?" "Yes, they did," Anna replied. "As well as witchcraft, my family were taught how to combat the many forces of darkness, like vampires for instance. But Dracula somehow learned of my people and wiped us out. Those that weren't killed had a terrible curse put upon them. They were to turn into a vile, ravenous bat-like creature if they became angry or upset. The remainders of my family were able to dilute to effects of the curse with their own magics, but the overall effects were still there. That was why my great-grandparents fled to Britain. They thought that moving away from Dracula's sphere of influence would combat the effects of the curse. No such luck. I guess that was why you were tracking Morbius that time." Spider-Man nodded. "You've got a big mad on against vampires." "Wouldn't you if your family was wiped out by them?" Anna asked simply. "Perhaps you would permit us to help you," Strange offered. "I may not be able to cure your affliction, but I can teach you to cope with the burst of rage that you experience during the change." "I guess it would help," Anna sighed. "I guess it'll beat brooding on my own. Well, with all those loose ends all tied up neatly, I'd better be off. I've got a hot wife to pleasure." Then without another word, Spider-Man shot out a web line and swung out of the window. "May I interest you in some herbal tea?" Dr. Strange asked. "The herbs are from the highest peaks of the Himalayas. I find that a tea brewed from those herbs helps me relax somewhat after a hard day conjuring." "It'll be a start." Anna nodded. Cream and 2 sugars for me, thanks. Peter and MJ's apartment. After getting changed into his civvies on the roof, Peter made his way down to his apartment and the waiting arms of his wife therein. Unfortunately, there were no waiting arms to be welcomed into. MJ, you here? Peter asked. There wasn't any immediate danger. His spider sense would have warned him if there was. Sweetie, you okay? Peter then noticed the sound of soft sobbing coming from the bathroom. He hurried over there to make sure that his wife was all right. Upon reaching the bathroom, Peter saw that MJ was sitting on the floor, curled up against the bath. MJ, are you okay? Peter asked concernedly as he knelt down beside his wife. What's wrong? MJ merely made sniffly noises and placed something in Peter's hand. It was a pregnancy test. Does this mean what I think it does? Peter asked. I'm going to be a mommy, MJ said through tears of joy. Peter gave a bellow of joy and grabbed his wife in his arms. Wahoo! This is great news. Peter grinned as he spun MJ around. I'm going to be a daddy. But what if we lose this one too? MJ asked worriedly. I'm not sure that I'll be able to cope with losing 2 babies. Peter stopped spinning MJ around and became serious. I doubt that even we are that unlucky, he said, but we'd better be extra careful, just to be safe. MJ nodded and kissed Peter lovingly. I'll call May and the others in the morning, okay? She said. But first I'm going to bed, it's been a busy day. Perhaps a massage will help you nod off? Peter asked. I was kinda banking on that. MJ chuckled as she took Peter by the hand and led him into the bedroom. It was early afternoon in Manhattan as Spider-Man swung across the city's sky. He was heading towards the building that housed the Blue Detective Agency. After the revelation that Mary Jane was pregnant again, Peter would stop at nothing to ensure that his wife and unborn child were safe. That included hiring a detective to make sure of the fact. Spider-Man dropped into an alley beside the building and began to get dressed into his civvies. Peter Parker then made his way into the building. Much to Peter's surprise, the agency's office was full of cardboard boxes, as if somebody was moving away. I hope I haven't come at a bad time, Peter said. Oh no, we're still open for business. Betsy Braddock, co-proprietor of the agency, replied as she looked up from her computer. Can I help you with anything, Mr. Parker? Peter Parker. Peter replied. Please, take a seat. Betsy replied, removing a box from the seat opposite her desk. Peter did as he was told and sat down. So, what brings you to Deadpool Inc., Mr. Parker? Betsy asked. What happened to the Blue Detective Agency? Peter asked. Well, the L and the E left. Betsy replied. Calling our agency BW or something would just be silly, so we decided on Deadpool Inc. Fair enough. Peter nodded. Is bodyguarding part of your guy's resume? Peter asked. Hey, we'll do anything. Betsy replied. We have several bodyguarding packages available. What exactly is your price range? I'll pay anything. Peter replied. Nothing is too good for my wife and unborn child. Okay. How about the Scarlet package? Betsy asked. This particular package is part of our Avengers range. You guys employ the Avengers? Peter asked, not really sure whether Betsy was serious or not. Well, everybody has to earn money. Betsy replied. Even the world's mightiest heroes. And this Scarlet package, that would be the Scarlet Witch, right? Yes, that's right. Betsy nodded. We also have the Jade and Giant size packages. Let me guess, She-Hulk and Giant Man, right? Peter asked. Or is that Goliath? I forget sometimes. He does change his name an awful lot, doesn't he? Betsy chuckled. Peter then looked at the brochure that was handed to him. That's quite a reasonable price. He nodded. Yeah, the Jade package sounds good enough to me. You can contact us on this number. Betsy replied as she handed Peter a card. The Baxter Building? Peter asked. You guys are certainly moving up in the world. Well, we've started to employ intern as well, so we need the extra space. Betsy replied. We'll contact you once the paperwork has been completed, okay? No problem. Peter nodded as he shook Betsy's hand. Thanks for this, it's really important to me that my wife and unborn child are safe. Well, thanks for coming here. Betsy replied. Your wife and child will be safe with us. Peter smiled at the purple-haired Brit and left the agency with a warm kind of feeling in his chest. glad that Mary Jane and their unborn child will be safe. He only had one more stop before going back home. He was off to Westchester. Queen's Mary Jane was sitting in Aunt May's living room nursing a cup of tea. She had originally come to visit to tell May the good news. That was if she could get the woman to sit down for a moment. "May, please, at least let me help you with something." "No dear, it's been such a long time since I've had visitors. Now indulge an old lady and sit down, okay?" MJ nodded and took a sip of her tea. "I'm sorry that Peter couldn't be here, but he had to see to something," MJ said. "Was it something of the web-slinging variety or something personal?" May asked. "Something personal," MJ replied. Could you please sit down for a sec? There's something important that I have to tell you." "Oh my goodness, there's nothing wrong, is there?" May asked concernedly as she took a seat. "You two are all right, aren't you?" "Peter and I have never felt better," MJ replied. "Everything is fine." MJ decided to get straight to the point. "I'm pregnant." May gasped in surprise as she put her hand to her mouth. "Oh my, that's wonderful." MJ smiled happily as May held her in a hug. "That's why Peter isn't here," MJ said. "He's gone to find somebody that'll protect us, so that I don't lose the baby like last time." "I'm sure that it won't come to that," May replied as she took MJ's hand. "Nobody is ever that unlucky, but it's best to be careful." Josie's Bar and Grill. Josie's Bar and Grill was one of those places that only scumbags and lesser supervillains frequented. The supervillain community was in a state of panic after the recent spate of killings. That was why several supervillains had gathered in the bar to come up with a plan of action to make sure they weren't the next ones to die. "I say we find out where this Scourge guy lives and show him not to mess with us," Tombstone said. "Yeah, and get slaughtered for our efforts," Stiltman replied. "What's the matter, you chicken?" Blizzard snorted. "No, just being realistic, is all," Stiltman replied. "Well, I still think meeting here is a dumb idea," Killer Shrike added. "A group of supervillains all gathered here, we're ripe for the plucking." "You're all cowards," the Gray Gargoyle snorted. "We're safe here, nobody would dare come into this bar." "Unless you're Daredevil or the Black Widow," Whirlwind replied. Me and the Wreckin' Crew could take him any day," the Wrecker snorted. "That may be so," the barman replied, "but can you all survive this?" The assembled villains looked over at the barman as he pulled a machine gun from behind the bat and let rip, peppering the assembled villains with bullet holes. After the dust had settled, 11 villains were dead. Justice has been served. Scourge strapped his gun to his back and made his escape. Meanwhile, Peter was on his way from his meeting in Westchester. He had gone to see Hank McCoy to talk about the possibilities if his and MJ's child grew to be a mutant. Hank said that the child would be perfectly welcome at the Xavier Institute if and when the child's mutant powers manifested. His mind was so occupied that he almost missed his spider sense warn him of incoming danger as he swung over Josie's Bar and Grill. Peter stopped as he heard gunfire and saw somebody run out of the door, so he set off in pursuit of the gunman. He didn't need to look into the bar to see that Scourge had struck. "Not so fast, Shooty McBang Bang," Peter said as he shot a webline at the gunman's legs, tripping him up. "At last, a like-minded savior," Scourge said as he looked at the incoming web-slinger. "That webbing must have cut off the circulation to your brain." "I don't kill people," Peter replied. Peter stopped. Something was familiar about the gunman's voice. Upon closer inspection, Peter could see that the gunman was actually a gunwoman. "What's the matter, don't you recognize me?" Scourge asked. "How about now?" Peter's eyes widened as Scourge removed the latex mask that disguised her true identity. Peter's heart almost stopped as he saw luscious blonde hair fall out of the mask along with beautiful blue eyes. "No, it can't be you," Peter whispered, trying to deny what his eyes told him. "Now hug for your Gwendy?" Gwen Stacy asked, an evil smile playing across her lips. Peter was too shocked at the sudden reappearance of his first love that he didn't notice his spider sense go off as Gwen reached into a holster and shot him with a tranquilizer dart. "Sorry about that, Petty," Gwen said as she kissed the top of Peter's head. "I've got one more thing to take care of. What do you say you meet me at the George Washington Bridge at midnight? Then you can see just who I mean." Peter was powerless to act as Gwen shot out a grappling hook and swung away. Norman Osborn was lying in the cot in his cell just staring up at the wall. Then he felt the strangest sensation that somebody was in the cell with him. Who's there? Show yourself, Norman demanded. What's the matter, Normie? A feminine voice replied. Don't you recognize me? Who the hell are you? Norman asked, and how did you get into my cell? Now that would be telling, the vice replied. Actually, this is kinda like, this is your life, isn't it? Although in your case, it would be, this is your death. Norman sat up straight and called for help. Guards! Guards! There's somebody in my cell. Don't worry about those guards, Normie. The voice replied. As far as they're concerned, you're just fast asleep in your cell. You won't get away with this, whoever you are, Norman said. Oh, I think I shall. The voice replied. You ever heard of the Hellfire Club? Whatever Celine wants, she can shove it, Norman replied. What is it with you villains? The voice groaned. Don't you watch the news? Celine's old news. The Hellfire Club is under new management. Norman's face filled in fear as the mystery woman stepped out of the shadows. It was Gwen Stacy, the same woman that he killed all those years ago. But why, you're dead, Norman said, backing away in fear. I could say the same for you, Normie. Gwen replied. As a Cajun guy once said, bang, you dead. Quick as a flash, Gwen pulled out a gun and shot Norman in the knees, eliciting a scream of pain from him. Okay. Better make that crippled. Gwen shrugged. We can't have you running away from a meeting, can you? Meeting? Norman asked. With an old friend. Gwen replied. You might know him, a certain web slinger? Gwen just laughed evilly as she teleported Norman and herself away. The George Washington Bridge, midnight. Peter Parker's mind was going a mile a minute as he thought about the night's events. First we enlisted Deadpool's help in guarding his wife and unborn child. Then he clashed with somebody that was killing supervillains who turned out to be a lost love back from the dead. Fate seemed to be laughing in his face once more. As soon as Mary Jane had revealed that she was pregnant, Gwen Stacy comes back and reveals she was the one killing all these villains. Peter's spider sense went off as he approached his destination. He could already see Gwen standing there waiting for him. There also seemed to be someone there with her, somebody dressed in a prison uniform. Nice of you to make it, Petty, Gwen said as she smiled sweetly. When Gwen smiled like that in the old days, it would make Peter's heart spin, but now, it just made him feel queasy. You're just in time to join the party. Say hello, Normie. Gwen held up the unconscious Norman Osborn. Peter's eyes widened in shock at the sight of the battered and bloodied Osborn. Peef. Look at that. Gwen snorted. The pansy passed out. Give me a sec to bring him around, would you? Peter just stood there dumbstruck as Gwen began to slap Norman around. Come on, Norman. I thought you were stronger than this, Gwen said as she slapped him across the face. What's the matter? That goblin serum not holding up? Norman came to with a groan. Oh God, Norman moaned. Parker too. I wish I could say this was a pleasure, Peter replied, but I can't. Just hurry up and kill me already, Norman said. Who said I'm gonna kill you? Gwen asked. That's too quick for you. First I'm going to hurt you like you've never been hurt before. Then I'll let you heal. I'll let the bruises subside and your bones knit back together, as that junk coursing through your veins will no doubt speed up, then I'll kill you. Gwen. This isn't the way, Peter said. Aw, come on, Petty. Gwen snorted. You want this as much as I do. Just imagine how peaceful your life will be if Osborn wasn't here. Aunt May will be safe. Mary Jane will be safe. Heck, even that unborn kid she carried in her belly will be safe. Peter's blood began to boil at the thought of Gwen mentioned his unborn child. How did you know? The Hellfire Club's got operatives everywhere, babe. Gwen replied. Now, what do you say you join me in kicking this bastard's ass? Do it, Parker, you know you want to, Norman hissed. Shut up, you. Gwen growled as she backhanded Norman across the face. You don't get a say. Now Peter, will I have to fight you or are you going to join me? You know I can't let you hurt Osborn, Peter replied. He may be a bastard of the highest order, but this isn't the way. Oh well, suit yourself. Gwen shrugged. Peter's spider sense flared up just in time as Gwen opened fire with her gauntlet darts. Peter managed to avoid the first few, but several nailed him in the shoulder and he fell to his knees, his head starting to feel heavy. I want you to stay conscious long enough to see this, Peter. You deserve to see Norman get his comeuppance. Peter was powerless to stop Gwen as she picked Norman up in her arms and brought his back down on her knee, breaking in with one foul strike. Gwen dumped the ruined Norman at her feet and sneered at Peter. "Be seeing you," she said as she dived backwards of the bridge. Peter stayed conscious just long enough to hear police helicopters approaching before succumbing to the tranquilizer darts. It was about lunchtime in Peter and Mary Jane Parker's New York apartment. Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk, had started her job of protecting Mary Jane and her unborn child. She even went so far as to cook the day's lunch, a quick meal of pasta and garlic bread. "I know that we're paying you for this, Jen," Mary Jane said, "but there's really no need to cook lunch every day." "Well, we can't have you doing everything in your condition, can we?" Jen replied. "Jen, I'm pregnant, not an invalid," Mary Jane said, "and there's ages to go yet, my bump isn't even starting to show." "Well, I'm cooking lunch, so there," Jen replied, sticking her tongue out immaturely. "Oh yeah, real mature," MJ snorted. "The world's collective bad guys must be quaking in their boots." Jen just chuckled at that and added a little more pasta into the steadily boiling pot. That smells nummy." A newly arrived Peter Parker smiled. MJ cracking the whip again? "You're lucky that I'm in a good mood, Tiger," Mary Jane replied, "or I would have kicked your butt for that, pregnant or not." "Lovely to see you too, sweetie," Peter said, pecking his wife on the cheek. "So what's for lunch?" "Pasta a la She-Hulk," Jen replied. "Dyes that mean that it's green and smashes junk up?" Peter asked cheekily. "Hardy har har," Jen replied. "I don't take that kind of crap from Hawkeye, and I won't take that kind of crap from you." Mary Jane looked at her husband with a worried expression. Ever since Gwen Stacy had come back and revealed herself to be the new scourge of the underworld, Peter had been in a near constant depression. He hid this well, but Mary Jane knew that something was up. "Peter, there's something wrong, honey?" MJ asked. "Just the usual midday attack of the villains," Peter replied. "You wouldn't believe how dumb some of these guys are. Rhino even went so far as to hold up a donut stand." "A donut stand, I tell you." Mary Jane looked straight through her husband's playfulness and went straight for the matter that was hurting him. "It's Gwen again, isn't it?" she asked. "We'll get through this, we always do. Besides, we've got Jen on our side this time." Peter sighed reluctantly. There was really no use in hiding anything from his wife. "It's just that nobody ever stays dead in this business," Peter said, "and it's not just the X-Men either." "Yeah, take it from somebody that's died before," Jen said. "It kinda gets passé after a while." "You didn't see what Gwen was like that time on the bridge," Peter explained. "She took down Norman Osborn on her own and broke his back." "Well, why not gather up a gang of your superhero friends and take her down?" Mary Jane asked, "like that time with the Sinister Six. Or the Carnage riots." Jen added. "What I'm saying is that you've got friends to help you," Mary Jane said. "You're not alone." Despite his depression, a small smile spread across Peter's face. "Thanks," he nodded. "That really means a lot to me." Jen smiled at the cozy sight and stirred her pasta. The reason why she wasn't freaking out that she was working for Spider-Man was because Peter and Mary Jane sat down with her and explained all the details. That caused a few chuckles from the Jade Giantess, as she had been involved with a case against Jonah Jameson, the owner of the Daily Bugle. Then, unaware of Spider-Man's true identity, she helped him sue Jameson after all the slanderous things he had printed in the Bugle. Unfortunately for Peter, seeing that he had taken many of the photos to go with the articles, he ended up involved in the case too. Wanting to avoid any money loss on his account, he settled on having himself and Jameson dress up as chickens and hand out written apologies to the public. "Hey, what do you say I treat you guys to a night out?" Jen asked. "I know this great place that does a super deal on tequila." "Tequila, Peter asked curiously. "Sounds fun. I guess I could get Daredevil to cover my shift." "No drinks for me, I'm afraid," Mary Jane said. "I'm with child, remember?" "Oh well, all the more for me, I guess," Jen shrugged. The Vault was a top security containment facility that housed errant supervillains. Even though it had seen many inmates escaped, the U.S. government still insisted on its use. Unknown to them, they were about to experience another breakout. Christy Johnson, aka the mutant symbiote known as Toxin, was lying back in her cell when she felt something fall onto her lap. Christy looked up to see who dropped the package on her lap but couldn't see any possible way for somebody to drop a package on her lap, apart from a slightly loose ceiling tile above her head. Christy just shrugged and opened the package. Inside was a key, a list of names and a note. "Use this key. It will unlock your containment collar." Christy read out loud. "Meh, what the hell, it's worth a try." Christy stuck the key in the lock of the collar that nullified her powers and was surprised to see it fall off with a clunk. "Cool." Christy grinned as the symbiote within her seeped out of her skin and soon covered her completely. Now to see who else is on this list. Adrian Toombs the Vulture. Mac Gargan Scorpion. Max Dillon Electro. Otto Octavius Dr. Octopus. Michael Morbius the Living Vampire. Hun, quite a collection. Gotta catch 'em all. Toxin then let rip with an energy blast, blasting a hole in her cell wall. She stepped through the hole amidst alarms blaring. As soon as she did this, armed guards came running. "Ooh, looky here, new playmates." Toxin grinned as she blasted the guards off their feet. "Ah, I broken them." And that's how it went. Toxin blasting her way to the cells of the people on her list. It didn't take her long to release them all. That was when a blonde woman appeared through a white disc. "Hey, I know you," Electro said. "You're that Stacy kid that Osborn offed." "Osborn won't be around for a while." Gwen Stacy, aka Scourge of the Underworld, replied. "He had an accident." "You broke his spine, why man?" Scorpion added. "Well, I'm in whatever yaw got planned." "And what exactly is it you have planned, my dear?" Dr. Octopus asked. "Toxin here is going to lead the new Sinister Six," Gwen replied. "I would do it myself, but I have other things to do. You know, screw around with the X-Men, the usual." "I will join, but I will be the one to kill Spider-Man," Dr. Octopus said. "That's the thing," Gwen replied. "I don't want you to kill him. Just hurt him, a lot. You may do whatever you wish with him, but don't kill him, or you will end up like this guy." The collection of villains watched as Gwen picked up the lone conscious guard by the neck and punched a hole through his chest, holding his heart in her hand. "Hun. I like this woman already." Electro snorted. "I'm in. At least being back on the streets means I can get back at those jerks in Cleveland." "1. I'm in." Scorpion added. "As am I," Dr. Octopus said. "Any excuse for some gratuitous property damage," Toxin nodded. "Count me in too," the Vulture said. "Me too," Morbius hissed. "Well then, allow me to present you the newly formed Sinister Six," Gwen said. "May Spider-Man wish he never crossed our paths." It was early in the morning as a rather groggy Peter Parker walked out of his bedroom in search of sustenance. The schools were on a break, so technically Peter should be staying in bed with his beautiful, pregnant wife. But that was not the case. Peter wanted to go out on an early patrol before going over to the Daily Bugle and handing in his latest crop of photographs of Spider-Man fighting Hydro Man in Central Park. Peter smiled slightly at the sight of Jennifer Walters zonked out on the couch, snoring like a freight train. It was lucky that Mary Jane was a heavy sleeper, or the poor women wouldn't be able to get any sleep at all with such a cacophony going on in the room next to theirs. Peter headed for the fridge and peered inside. It was pretty bare. Nothing there except some eggs, cheese and a red pepper. "Omelette it is then," Peter said to himself as he began to get breakfast prepared. Upon cracking the eggs open and plopping them in the pan, Peter went about making some coffee and juice. Just lately, Mary Jane had been having a craving for orange juice with a dollop of whipped cream on top. It wasn't exactly one of the most exotic cravings that Peter had heard of, but at least it wasn't something weird like a chocolate and spam taco. Peter whistled quietly to himself as he grated the cheese into the eggs and mixed it up. There was a mumbled groan as Jen woke up. Do I smell omelets?" the Jade Giantess asked as she popped her head over the top of the couch. "Yup," Peter replied. "I am preparing you fine ladies some breakfast. Okay, the cupboards are a little bare, but we have to make do with the stuff that we have, you know." Jen pulled up a chair and flopped down. I can't remember the last time I had a nice omelet," Jen said with a lick of her lips. "Wanda used to make the best omelets I had ever tasted. Pity she's a little too busy for that kind of thing nowadays." "You mean she's too busy with Cap, right?" Peter asked as he began to chop up the red pepper. "Man, who would have thought those two would end up with each other?" And the best thing was that they got together at one of my patented kick-ass parties. Jen grinned proudly. Man, I so rule. Do I smell food? Mary Jane murmured sleepily as she stepped out of the bedroom. Let me guess, Spanish omelets. Got it in one, sweetie. Peter replied with a smile. Here's your OJ with whipped cream, so all you need to do now is sit down and let your doting husband do all the work. Mary Jane did as she was told and took a seat. Geez MJ, you've sure got Peter whipped. Jen chuckled. Sometimes literally. Peter chuckled. Peter, Mary Jane hissed, shooting her husband a glare. We really don't get up to anything, Jen, honestly. Right, I'm sure you don't. Jen snickered. Later. After a rather uneventful patrol, Peter headed back home. He was going shopping with Mary Jane and Jen. They obviously needed to buy some groceries. The baby was due any moment now, and the Parkers couldn't have their child born to a family with bare cupboards. The trio were walking down the street. Peter was reading off the shopping list while Jen carried the bags. Haven't she Hulk as a bodyguard, sometimes doubled as bag carrier? So we've got all the frozen goods, right? Peter asked. Pizza, various meats. What about fresh produce? That's our next stop. Mary Jane replied. Apples and oranges. I need to keep my vitamin C levels up. Then there's lettuce and stuff for salad. Peter nodded and put the list back in his pocket. Right. Off to the greengrocer's stall we go. Unfortunately, the trio never got to their destination as Peter's spider sense went wild. Jen, get MJ to cover. Peter said. We've got trouble. What kind of trouble? Jen asked. Oh, about 8 tentacles worth. Peter replied as he saw Dr. Octopus throwing parked cars about with his robotic limbs. Jen did as she was told and took Mary Jane to the safety of Avengers Mansion while Peter dealt with Dr. Octopus. After a quick change, once Peter had ducked into a nearby alley to change into his work clothes, he swung around the corner to see that Ock wasn't alone. He was joined by Electro, Scorpion, the Vulture, Morbius, and the mutant symbiote known as Toxin. Now, normally the prospect of taking on 6 supervillains wouldn't be much of an exciting one for Peter, but there were other heroes there too. Black Cat, Wolverine, the Human Torch and Daredevil were there as well. Saves me asking them for help, I guess. Peter said to himself as he swung towards the battle. Hey guys, enough room for a little one? About time you showed up, Webhead. The Human Torch said. Pick a partner and start dancing. I've got first dibs. Toxin said as she tried to blast Spidey with an energy blast. Fortunately, Spidey easily avoided her. Man, they sure don't make high-tech maximum security prisons like they used to nowadays, Spidey said as he landed atop a lamppost. I'm surprised the things are kept open, what with a mass breakout every other week. Toxin hissed in anger and ripped the lamppost from the ground. I'm going to crush you like the bug that you are, she hissed. You're not the first one to try. Spidey sighed as he flipped over Toxin's head. Now normally I wouldn't hit a lady, even super-powered symbiotic psychopaths, but you are in no way a lady. Toxin hissed once more as Spidey swept her legs from under her and shot webbing in her face. I may not be a lady, but I'm still going to crush you. Toxin hissed as she ripped the webbing from her face. Toxin smash. Rog. Taking eloquence lessons from the Hulk, I see, Spidey said as he flipped out of the way. Hey, Spidey. Wolverine called. Are Ock's tentacles made out of adamantium nowadays or just steel? I keep on losing count. Steel. Spidey replied. Why do you ask? No reason. Wolverine shrugged as he slashed at Ock's mechanical limbs, eliciting a yell from the former scientist. Y'all look pretty armless to me now, Ock. Wolverine snickered as he stood over the defeated villain. Geez Wolvie, talk about bad jokes. Black Cat winced as she grabbed Scorpion by the tail and swung him around. That's bad, even by Torchy's standards. Hey, still here. The Human Torch replied as he set the Vulture's wings alight. My jokes aren't that bad. That isn't what Grimm told me. Wolverine said. Okay, perhaps my witty repartee does need a little work. The Human Torch shrugged. But at least I've got a sense of humor, unlike certain people not a million miles away. I have it on rather good authority that I have a great sense of humor. Daredevil replied as she knocked Morbius out with a blow from his billy club. Just ask the Black Widow, she'll tell you just how funny I can be. While all the other villains were tangling with their respective opponents, Electro was left all on his own with nobody to fight. Hey. This is sweet. Electro chuckled. Leave the others do all the work while I just sit back with a brewski, my kinda fight. Now that isn't the right kind of attitude to take, is it? Electro spun around to see She-Hulk standing behind him. Oh, crap, Electro groaned. She-Hulk just grinned evilly and cracked her knuckles. It looks like it's up to me to mop up everybody's mess, she snickered. Just do it quick. Electro winced. But please, not the face. She-Hulk just grinned with glee as she picked Electro up and threw him through the air, bowling the rest of the villains down. You have to tell me that was a 10-pointer, She-Hulk grinned. A little rough on the dismount but otherwise fine, Spidey replied. 8.5 at the most. Are you mental? She-Hulk asked. It was a strike, therefore 10 points. Meh, suit yourself. Spidey shrugged. I'm just glad this fight's over. I need to get back home, I have shopping to unpack. Hey, why don't we do this again sometime? The Human Torch asked. Make a permanent thing of this. Form a team and junk. What are we going to call ourselves? Black Cat asked. The New Defenders. She-Hulk and her amazing friends? She-Hulk asked. That's not such a bad idea. Spidey replied. But just with one minor adjustment. How about Spider-Man and his amazing friends? Dude, that name sucks. The Human Torch winced. It's so cliched. Well, call it whatever y'all want. Wolverine shrugged. Just don't expect me to do much, I'm in enough teams as it is. That's only because you're such a merchandising cert. She-Hulk replied. Trust somebody that's been there. That's unless you're too busy with a certain weather witch. Daredevil said, a small grin appearing on his face. Don't try to be funny, Red. Wolverine sighed. It ain't be comin'. TBC, after a quick elevator ride upwards, Peter and the others reached their swanky new apartment. The actual apartment was understandably sparse, seeing that the furniture hadn't arrived yet, but the huge windows that ran around the apartment's perimeter gave one hell of a view of Manhattan. Are you sure that all these windows are safe? May wondered as she cautiously peered outside. What if that horrid green goblin attacks? I doubt he will even get within pumpkin bomb distance. Jen smirked. But if old Gobby does, he'll find out that this place is harder to get into than Cyclops' wallet. As if to illustrate her point, Jen punched the window. A rather loud boom reverberated around the room. Did you have to do that? Peter winced as he removed his hands from his ears. Ow. Just a handle little invention that Reed Richards came up with. Jen explained. Kind of a cross between regular glass and adamantium. You'd need a Death Star to get through these babies. Add to that, retinal scans, voice recognition, fingerprints, yada, yada, yada. Wow. Mary Jane breathed. Mr. Stark sure knows how to be thorough. It's all a little overwhelming, May added, but if the baby is to be safe, it will make do. That's the spirit, Jen grinned. Now, I'll leave you guys to get acquainted with your new home. Okay. I'll give you a shout when the furniture arrives. And with that, Jen left the Parkers to get to know their new home. Mary Jane was the first to speak. Wow. This is just wow. And how? Peter nodded. But I can't help but feel a little guilty getting a free apartment. I feel like a freeloader or something. There's really no way to feel that way. It's the least I could do. Mary Jane gasped in surprise at the new arrival. It was Tony Stark in all his immaculately dressed Armani-suited glory. Okay. The least that I could have done was nothing at all, Tony continued. But enough babbling. I am here to welcome you to Stark Towers. Welcome. Mary Jane just stood there agape. Does your wife usually act like a crazed fangirl? Tony asked in a hushed whisper. You should have seen her when she met Captain America. Peter whispered back. She was like a kid in a star-spangled candy store. Tony just chuckled at that and turned to May. And who is this? I didn't know you had a younger sister, Mary Jane. May tried to hide her girlish giggle. Oh Peter, I had no idea your friends were so charming. Anything for a pretty lady. Tony smiled charmingly. Now, if there is anything you need, don't hesitate to call. Will do. Peter nodded. Are you sure that there isn't anything we could do in return? I feel kinda crappy just mooching off you. Some decent press coverage wouldn't go amiss. Tony thought out loud. Iron Man could do with some official photos. You know, to send out to the fans. Consider it done. Peter nodded. Well, I'd better get going, Tony said apologetically. Caps wants to introduce the new Captain Britain to us soon. What happened to the old one? Mary Jane asked. Megan Braddock dropped a car on her, too, Tony shrugged. I see, Mary Jane blinked. Ask a silly question. I'll see you later, okay? Tony asked as he politely kissed Mary Jane's hand. And you behave yourself, young lady. Tony told May. I don't allow shenanigans in my building. Peter and Mary Jane just rolled their eyes at that. Later, after the furniture had arrived, been unloaded, Jen was vital for that part, and put away in their appropriate places, Peter and Mary Jane decided to take a look at the view from the roof. May would have gone too, but the excitement of the big move had quite tired her out, so she decided to retire to the bedroom for a nap. Peter and Mary Jane stepped out of the elevator and gasped at the sight that greeted them. The whole roof was decorated with bunting and balloons. There was even a banner with "Welcome Parkers" emblazoned on it. Enjoy your surprise? Jen asked as she walked up to the pair. This was all Tony's idea, by the way. Wow. Mary Jane nodded. Look at all these people. There's Johnny Storm. Matt Murdock. That scary Canadian guy, what's his name? Pine Martin. Wolverine. Logan corrected as he finished the last of his beer. Congrats on our new home. Geez, Mary Jane whispered. The way you told me, it seemed like the guy could fit in your pocket. MJ, Peter hissed. He can hear you. Shush, oopsie. Mary Jane winced. Oh look, it's Felicia. I'll go say hi. Peter sighed in relief as his wife went to say hi to Felicia Hardy, the former cat burglar known as the Black Cat. The fact that Felicia was Peter's ex-girlfriend didn't seem to stop Mary Jane from building a string friendship with her though. Heck, Felicia was one of the baby's godparents, so Mary Jane have trusted her. That's a nice lady y'all got there, Pete. Logan nodded. Real lucky. Yeah, I know. Peter grinned. Wait, you're not doing what I think you're doing, are you? Didn't you learn enough from Jean Grey? Pete. I'm over her. Logan replied. Really? I've only got eyes for one woman now. Oh yeah. Peter nodded. Storm. And just where is the fair Ms. Monroe? Gone shopping with Sage and Jean. Logan replied. How convenient for you, Peter said. Oh well, enough jibber jabber, I'd better go schmooze. Ta. Logan scratched his head as he watched Peter walk off. That is one crazy spider dude, over with Mary Jane and Felicia. And then I said, these claws aren't for show, so you'd better watch your mouth, and the rest was history. I really don't know why they even bother letting guys like the Shocker out of prison. Mary Jane chuckled. Everybody knows that he'll go straight back in again. And how? Felicia nodded. Enough about me. How's my little goddaughter doing? Felicia asked as she knelt in front of Mary Jane's bump and began to babble in baby talk. Who's a lovely little fetus? You are. Yes, you're a lovely little fetus. Have you thought of a name yet? Can you believe that Peter wanted to call the baby Anakin? Mary Jane asked. I swear, he's become nigh obsessed after seeing that darn movie. Look at it this way, Felicia chuckled. He could have wanted to call the baby Yoda. Yeah, I guess I'd better think myself lucky. Mary Jane nodded. So, how's this new boyfriend of yours? Felicia has a new boyfriend. Peter asked as he walked up behind the pair. Ooh, who is it? Simon Williams. Felicia revealed. The Wonder Man, Simon Williams? Peter asked. No, the Herald of Galactus, Simon Williams. Mary Jane quipped with a roll of her eyes. Wonder Man is one of Galactus's heralds? Peter blinked in mock disbelief. Man, it's always the ones you least suspect. Tiger, I love you, but you really have to stop speaking now. Mary Jane explained. The big move has made you all hyper. Why don't you go and sit down? Yes, dear, Peter replied obediently. Man, you really have him whipped, Felicia grinned. Only if he's been naughty. Mary Jane replied with an evil grin. Oh wait, you didn't mean that kind of whipped. And just what kind of whipped did you think I meant? Felicia asked. Oh look, there's Captain America, Mary Jane said, quickly changing the subject. Better go say hi. Peter and Mary Jane were sitting back, chilling in their living room. Recently it had been very busy for the Parkers, what with the big move and all. Aunt May would have joined them, but she was out doing a little spot of grocery shopping. This is the life. Mary Jane sighed contentedly as she snuggled closer to her husband. No villains out to crush you. No principals hassling you for being late to class. Aunt May out shopping. Having the place all to ourselves. Peter edged a curious eyebrow at his wife's tone of voice. She was purring seductively. That was never a good sign. MJ, Peter gulped as he slowly edged away from his wife. Remember the last time we listened to our lecherous impulses? A small smile spread on Mary Jane's face as she looked down at her pregnant belly. Yeah, I can see what you mean, Tiger. Mary Jane chuckled. But there's no rule saying that we can't enjoy married life, right? I guess not, Peter sighed. Mary Jane frowned slightly at her husband's reluctance to snuggle. Don't tell me that you've gone off me already. Mary Jane sighed as she indicated her S. Don't tell me you've gone off these babies. Peter cleared his throat nervously. It's not that, Peter stammered. It's just. Peter, Mary Jane said seriously. It's not like I'm asking you to help me practice the Karma Sutra or anything, it's just a little rumble in the hay. Okay. Peter sighed. You've ground me down. Lead me on, lover. Peter allowed himself to be led away to the bedroom. Unseen by the Parkers, a figure was approaching their window at an alarming speed. A rather muscular black and white figure swinging towards them on a strand of organic webbing. Unfortunately for the uninvited visitor, he collided with the unbreakable glass of the window with a mighty boom. Peter leapt out of the bedroom at the sound. Oh God! Anybody but you, Peter groaned as he saw the figure slowly slide down the windowpane. Parker, Venom wheezed as he struggled to hold on to the window. We need your help. We're being hunted. And I should help you because, Peter crossed his arms, a skeptical expression on her face. You helped us during the Carnage riots. Venom reminded as he pressed his hands on the glass of the window, a long stream of green drool running down it. That was because I didn't have any other choice. Peter remembered. All of New York was going to hell in a handbasket. Unaware of the present goings-on, Mary Jane poked her head out of the bedroom. Peter, come to bed, honey. My engine can't keep running all day. Venom looked at the semi-Mary Jane then back at Peter. We see that you're rather busy, Parker. Venom snickered. Perhaps we should come back later. Peter just slapped himself upside the head and groaned out loud. Have I ever told you that I really hate you, Eddie? Oh yeah. Venom nodded. Every spare chance you get. Oh, shut up. A short time later Venom was sat in a chair in the apartment while Peter and She-Hulk listened to his story. Now, just who is after you? She-Hulk growled, trying on her best bad cop impression. Venom seemed to regard the Jade Giantess for a moment before he answered her question. It's the Hellfire Club. The Hellfire Club is after us. Oh. Peter groaned. Everybody's been up against those guys recently. I guess it was only a matter of time before it was my turn. Why would the Hellfire Club want you, Brock? She-Hulk asked. Why would we care? The psychotic symbiote exclaimed. All we care is that the Hellfire Club tried to kill us. You have to help us, Parker. Just give me a moment to get change. Peter sighed. I swear, the world is plotting against me. As soon as I get an ounce of peace, something like this happens. Jen, if Brock even moves a muscle, use your imagination. She-Hulk just chuckled evilly as she cracked her knuckles. Venom waited until Peter had left the room before turning to regard She-Hulk again. So She-Hulk, what are you doing tomorrow night? Ew. She-Hulk winced. No offense or anything, not that I really care, but I don't really date villains. You had a fling with Juggernaut, Venom retorted. Not listening, She-Hulk winced. You cannot seriously say that Kane Marco is better in bed than us, Venom continued. Come on. It's not as if we're asking for marriage or anything. She-Hulk just shivered in disgust. Ew. 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 You are sick and, ew, sick. We've never had any complaints before, Venom winked. Somewhere in the Bronx, later Peter, dressed in his Spider-Man gear, was knelt on a rooftop with She-Hulk and Venom, overlooking the rows of warehouses below them. We still don't get what Mary Jane's problem is. Venom began. It's almost as if she's scared of us. That's most probably because she is. You dumbass, Spider-Man growled. She still has nightmares about that time you snuck into our apartment. Oh. Venom blinked. Do you think we should send her flowers or something? I should think it's a little too late for that, Brock. She-Hulk sighed. Just let MJ be, okay? Yes, ma'am. Venom nodded obediently. Geez, Jen, what did you do to him? Spider-Man asked. She-Hulk shivered in disgust before answering. I'm going on a date. She-Hulk winced. Oh God. I think I'm gonna puke. No way. Spidey snickered. You're going on a date with him? Are you mental? Hey. Venom frowned. We're still here, you know. Yeah, that's real nice. Spidey shrugged, waving Venom away. So, when's the wedding? Can we please think of the task at hand? She-Hulk growled again. Hellfire Club screwing around, remember? Yes. Spidey nodded. Prioritize. Do we get to smash some heads? Venom asked. Just wait a sec, Brock. Spidey replied as he held his chin in thought. We're not the Punisher. We can't run in like this as Death Wish, or something. Aw. Venom pouted. We wanted to bust some heads. Shut up. Spidey groused. I'm thinking, inside the warehouse. Unaware of the fact that they had 3 snoopers, snooping on them, the members of the Hellfire Club that had been assigned to take down Venom went about their business of planning a backup plan. Tell me again why we're not out there shredding the stupid civvies to shreds. The psychotic symbiote known as Carnage muttered as he paced the room impatiently. Shredding the civvies is kind of like my thing, you know. Without it I'm just an annoying jerk. The green-haired assassin known as Viper grumbled, as she made sure her guns were loaded ready for a fight. Yes, no, Carnage blinked. Hey, if it wasn't for this damn implant that McCoy somehow managed to put in my head, you'd be joining the civvies in a big pile of burger meat. Quiet, the both of you. The renegade shear known as Deathbird hissed. The White King commanded us to stay here. We shall obey his orders. Or do you wish to end up like the last person that disobeyed his orders? Carnage and Viper fully well knew what Deathbird was talking about. The last person that disobeyed the White King ended up being fed to Morgan Le Fay's pet demons. It was a sight that made even Carnage queasy. Where is His Royal Highness anyway? Viper smirked. As loath as I am to admit it, I have to agree with Cassidy. Why aren't we out there hunting down Brock again? Isn't it Liquidation Scourge's job? Scourge is busy elsewhere. Deathbird explained. Morgan did not explain what, however. Your petty squabbling is disturbing me. A mechanized voice wheezed as a white skeletal figure wearing a ragged cloak walked out from the shadows. Preparing for the upcoming battle is paramount. Paramount nothing. Carnage snorted. I never used to prepare whenever I went out on a rampage. If I didn't know better, I'd say that you're chicken. As quick as a flash, before Carnage could even hold up one hand to defend himself, the skeletal figure shot out a hand and grabbed the symbiote by the throat. You will do as I say, the White King hissed. Morgan Le Fay gave me the role of White King, and I intend to prove myself worthy of the role. Geez, I was only kidding. Carnage wheezed. No need to go mental. Deathbird stood up and approached the White King, wanting to remedy the situation as soon as possible. General Grievous, the sheer woman said calmly. Carnage may be an annoying waste of flesh, but he may be right. While we are biding our time here, our enemies may already be massing against us. Perhaps you are right. Grievous nodded. Yes. We will move at this very moment. If the Black Queen wishes Edward Brock to be eliminated, then Edward Brock will be eliminated. Carnage's eyes snapped wide open as he sensed an all-too-familiar presence. It looks like you're gonna get your wish sooner than you thought, General. Carnage snickered. They're here. Grievous spun around just in time to see a red and blue figure smash through a window above him. She-Hulk and Venom followed soon after as they smashed through the wall, forcing Grievous to shield himself with a skeletal arm. Okay. I already know Carnage. Spidey explained as he perched atop a rafter. But you two ladies, not so much. Spidey then noticed the droid general below him. Wait. This can't be right, Spidey blinked, putting his hands on his hips in admonishment. Has somebody been messing around in other dimensions again? Spider-Man, Grievous hissed. Ooh, Spidey grinned. Have you heard of me? My My, news sure travels first. Enough talk. Grievous bellowed. Kill Brock and the two interlopers. About time too. Carnage snickered. I'll take the ladies. Say, Hulk said as she cracked her knuckles. Brock, you take. You're mine, Carnage, Venom bellowed as he charged at his offspring. Bring it, Pops, Carnage sneered as he got ready to fight his father. I guess it leaves the scary skeleton droid man to me then. Spider-Man sighed as he leapt off his perch. Man, this is going to be sweet. I am glad that you are meeting your impending death with mirth. Grievous nodded as he threw his cloak to one side and straightened to his full height. I always enjoy it so much more when my prey dies with a smile on their mouth. You know, I kinda preferred you in the movie, Spidey admitted as he shot Grievous in the face with webbing. You didn't talk as much. Grievous didn't even blink an eye as he snatched two lightsabers from his belt and lit them up, shredding the webbing before it could stick to him. Ah, nuts. Spidey winced as he dodged the twin lightsabers. And here I am without my lightsaber too. Hardly fair, don't you think? Being fair is underrated, Grievous remarked as he slashed at Spidey with his lightsabers. Elsewhere, She-Hulk was squaring up against Viper and Deathbird. Are you ladies going to give up and come along peacefully like nice little Hellfire people, or will I have to get serious? Viper answered the question with a barrage of bullets in the Jade Giantess direction. You have it your way, hun. She-Hulk shrugged as she cracked her knuckles. Inevitably ladies, She-Hulk will smash. She-Hulk grabbed an attacking Deathbird by the wings and tossed her into Viper, knocking them both to the floor. Oh come on. I thought you ex-villains were supposed to be badasses. She-Hulk snickered. You're not all that. You will pay for this effrontery. Deathbird hissed as she stood up off the ground. I am the rightful heir to the sheer throne. I am Deathbird. And I'm a Pisces. She-Hulk retorted as she swatted the alien woman away with barely a blink. Whatever. Over with Venom and Carnage, the two symbiotes were rolling across the floor, biting and clawing at each other like two drunken college girls having a catfight. We will rip out your spine and drink the fluid. I'm gonna tear out your liver and spread it on my toast. We're gonna rip out your ribcage and use it as a toast rack. I'm gonna gouge out your eyes and give them to Scourge for earrings. We have had enough of this. Venom roared as he booted his spawn off him. You have tainted this city with your presence for too long. We are going to end this now. And here I was thinking that you were just playing. Carnage snickered. You couldn't kick my butt even if it was the most butt-kickingest day of your life and you had an electrified butt-kicking machine. Unfortunately for Carnage, he didn't get the chance as She-Hulk tossed Deathbird through the air, impaling the symbiote on her wings. Hey, Venom groused. He was ours. We can share Viper if you want, She-Hulk offered. Meh. Venom shrugged. She'll have to do. Back with Spidey, he was still having a little more trouble with the lightsaber-wielding General Grievous. Spidey had already managed to yank the General's lightsabers away with webbing. Unfortunately, Grievous had plenty more to take their place. Man, if Shadowcat knew that I was duking it out with you, she'd plots. Spidey laughed as he blocked Grievous' lightsabers with his stolen pair. You talk too much, insect, Grievous snorted as he booted Spider-Man out of the way. What is it with villains? Spidey groused. A spider is an arachnid, an arachnid. Spidey flung one of his lightsabers at Grievous, neatly cutting off one of the General's arms. Grievous simply laughed out loud at that as his extra pair of arms popped out from their hiding places. Prepare to die, Spider-Man, Grievous snarled, now wielding 3 lightsabers. I don't think so, your generalship. Spidey replied as he vaulted onto a wall. You're already beaten. Just look at your precious lackeys. Grievous looked about him to see Carnage impaled against the wall by an unconscious Deathbird's wings and Venom poking and defeated Viper with a stick. Curses. Grievous hissed. You win this round, Spider-Man, but you shall not be so lucky next time. Before Spider-Man could even put up one hand to stop them, Grievous and his lackeys disappeared in a flash of light. Oh, for crying out loud, Spidey hissed, they disappeared. At least they don't want to kill us now, right? Venom asked. We have to give ourselves that much. Yeah, I guess. Spidey shrugged. At least I've got some ing presents to give MJ once I get back. Real lightsabers. Ooh, shiny, She-Hulk grinned. We want to touch them, Venom said as he reached out to touch them. Hey! Spidey hissed as he snatched the lightsabers away. They're mine. Oh wait, you meant She-Hulk. Hey! She-Hulk hissed as she swatted away Venom's busy hands. Keep your claws where I can see 'em, bub. You've got a right one there, Jen. Spidey snickered. I hate my life. She-Hulk sighed. Elsewhere, Norman Osborn was grousing in his study. The goblin serum that coursed through his veins enabled him to survive quite a lot of damage, but ever since Scourge had crippled him, he had been confined to a wheelchair. Just wait until I get out of this wheelchair, Norman ranted to himself. You'll soon find out that it isn't wise to make Norman Osborn angry. Oh wait, you already found that out once before. Aha ha ha ha, what the hell? Norman's evil laughter was cut short as the lights went out. Oh, for the love of... Norman growled as he wheeled over to the door. Good-for-nothing electricians. I'll give them a piece of my mind. Norman cursed under his breath once as one of the wheels of his wheelchair got caught on something. Polite people usually say excuse me when they want to get past. Norman let out a yell of surprise as he fell backwards, tumbling off his wheelchair. What do you want now, why you witch? Norman snarled as he struggled to stand upright. Playing more games with me? Why don't you put us all out of our misery and kill me already? Funny you should say that, actually, the figure replied. I came here to do that very same thing. Norman's eyes snapped open as he saw a sword glint in the moonlight. Justice has been served. Scourge of the underworld grinned evilly. It had been a quiet day in the city of New York. There had hardly been any crime to foil at all. Just one measly mugging and nothing else. Spider-Man was seriously considering giving up and going home to his wife. The baby was due any time now, and Spidey didn't want to miss it when his wife went into labor. Spidey was presently sitting atop a gargoyle eating a hot dog he had just purchased from a vendor down below. Spidey licked his lips. God knows what they put in these things, but they're sure tasty. Spidey was so immersed in his quick snack that he didn't notice a familiar blonde figure lower themselves down behind him. The feline vigilante known as the Black Cat smiled at catching Spider-Man unawares. Hey Spider! Spidey yelped in surprise and lost his grip on his hot dog, sending it tumbling to the ground, many floors down below. Spidey's spider sense hadn't warned him of his friend's presence as the Black Cat didn't wish him any harm. Felicia. Geez. Spidey gasped, putting his hand on his heart. You made me drop my hot dog. I think I killed a guy. Those things are bad for you, you know. Black Cat tutted. Goodness knows how Mary Jane would feel if her beloved husband became a blimp. Spidey fixed his friend with a mock-angry glare. Is there any particular reason you're here? Or were you just planning on making me soil myself? As funny as seeing you soil yourself is, I was just wondering whether you'd seen today's newspaper, Black Cat responded. Felicia, you very well know that the Parker household is a no-bugle area, Spidey pointed out. I just thought that you'd want to see the headline, Spider. Black Cat said as she held out the latest issue of the Daily Bugle. Spidey's jaw dropped as he read the headline. Norman Osborn dead. Spidey sputtered. How? He was supposed to have been beheaded. Black Cat read. The words justice has been served were reported to have been scrawled across the wall in Osborn's own blood. Scourge, Spidey growled. I knew it was only a matter of time until she showed her face again. Do you think this is another case for the amazing Spider Buddies? Black Cat asked. No, Spidey shook his head. This thing between Gwen and me is personal. I'm going to take care of this alone. It could be a trap, you know, Black Cat pointed out. I can't take that chance, Felicia. Spidey sighed solemnly. I have to stop Gwen before she kills anybody else. This has gone too far. Osborn may have been a class A bastard, but there was no need to kill him like that. People like him should be locked up and have the key thrown away. Black Cat didn't say anything more as Spidey shot out a webline and swung away. Hopefully the web-slinger wasn't taking on more than he could chew. Later Spider-Man had scoured the entire city for signs of Gwen, but had come up empty. The web-slinger landed on the roof of a building near the docks. Well, this is the last place left to look, Spidey muttered to himself. If Gwen isn't here, I don't know where she could be. Pain shot through Spidey's head as his spider sense went off. Spidey leapt out of the way just as a barrage of bullets shredded the spot he had been standing on. Spidey looked around for the attacker. What the? You-hoo, over here, Spidey. A voice called. Spidey narrowed his eyes as he saw a familiar figure standing on the roof of a nearby building. This is over, Gwen, Spidey yelled. Stop this madness, now. Ah, come on Peter, Gwen pouted. Can't a girl have a little fun? Spidey answered that question by swinging across to the building and kicking the gun out of Gwen's hand. Oh, pooh, Gwen sulked. You're no fun. This isn't a game, Gwen. Spidey frowned. I'm going to take you in for killing Osborn. An eye for an eye, petty dear, Gwen responded. He killed me, so I simply repaid the favor. You're insane, Peter hissed. The Gwen that I knew wouldn't harm a fly. The Gwen Stacy that you once knew is dead, Peter. Gwen sneered. The Hellfire Club brought me back so I could get my revenge on those who wronged me. Now that Normie's out of the picture, you're next on my list. Spidey's spider sense went off again, warning him of danger. Gwen lashed out with a knife, which Spidey easily avoided. Gwen, please, Spidey begged. It doesn't have to end this way. Oh, doesn't it? Gwen asked. You can't seriously tell me that you never thought of killing Osborn yourself after all the stuff he's put you through. Just look at the list of the things that monster has done to you. He killed me, he kidnapped your Aunt May and kept her captive for years, he made Mary Jane lose your baby, and he turned Flash Thompson into a vegetable. Norman Osborn was an animal and he needed to be put down. But killing him wasn't the way. Spidey countered. That isn't how it works. Well, it should be. Gwen snarled angrily. I just did what you never had the guts to do. Nobody needs to be afraid of that monster now. You're the one who is a monster, Gwen. Spidey pointed an accusatory finger. And I intend to stop you. I have some friends that might have something to say about that. Gwen smiled evilly as she spoke into her wrist communicator. Okay, let's get this party started, people. Spidey's spider sense went crazy as hordes of Hellfire Club soldiers burst out of the surrounding buildings. Also amongst the soldiers were members of the Hellfire Club's inner circle. Legion, Omega Red, Black Tom Cassidy, Viper, Lady Deathstrike and Carnage. Ooh, I love a party. Carnage grinned, clapping his hands excitedly. Dibs on the web swinger's spleen. Spidey's shoulders fell. Black Cat was right. This was a trap. There was no way in hell that he could survive this fight. Fortunately for Spider-Man, help was about to arrive. Hi, is this a private party or can anybody join in? The Human Torch asked as he arrived with a crowd of allies. Along with him were the rest of the Fantastic Four, She-Hulk and several of the Avengers, Wolverine and several members of the X-Men, Black Cat and Daredevil. I know that you said that you wanted to take this on your own, Spider, Black Cat apologized. But I couldn't let you leave that unborn child of yours fatherless. What kind of godmother would I be then? Ooh, so many pretties. Legion grinned. We're gonna have ourselves a real party now. You shoulda stayed dead, kid, Wolverine growled as he unsheathed his claws. And what are you gonna do about it, old man? Legion snorted. Oh, I think you can learn that for yourself, Logan responded as he leapt in to attack. With that, everybody followed Wolverine's lead and attacked the Hellfire Club without mercy. Oh well, the more, the merrier, Gwen shrugged. Just as long as I get you all to myself. I really don't want to hurt you, Gwen, Spidey warned as he got ready to fight. But I will if I have to. That's the spirit, Peter, Gwen grinned evilly. To think I thought you were beginning to go soft. Spidey didn't reply as he swung a punch at his ex-girlfriend. Unfortunately, Gwen was ready for this and caught the punch. She then used Spidey's own momentum against him and tossed him over her shoulder. You're getting old, Peter. Gwen tutted. Give up before you break a hip or something. I'll never give up as long as monsters like you are still around, Spidey hissed as he swept Gwen's legs from under her. Good boy. Gwen smiled. That's what I like to see, a man willing to go all the way. Gwen pulled out another knife and lunged at Spidey again. Spidey quickly webbed Gwen's hand and pushed her away. What shall I do after I kill you? Gwen thought out loud. Oh, I know. I'll make sure that your beloved Mary Jane and dear old Aunt may join you. Or perhaps I'll only beat you to a pulp, then kill them in front of you. That was the last straw. Nobody threatened Mary Jane or Aunt May and got away with it. Spidey lunged at Gwen with a vicious punch to the face, soon to be followed to a kick to the gut. That's it, Peter. Gwen grinned through the pain. Don't let up. Show everybody how much of a badass you really are. Shut your mouth. Spidey yelled as he punched Gwen again. Just shut your damn mouth. Ooh, somebody's got a temper, Gwen teased in a sing-song voice. Spidey didn't reply as he kept on fighting Gwen. Unknown to the two combatants, however, they were moving perilously close to the edge of the building. Gwen slipped on the edge of the roof and began to fall. Spidey lunged forward and grabbed Gwen by the hand just in time. You always were a softie, Peter, Gwen sneered. Give me one reason why I shouldn't let you fall. Spidey responded threateningly. You don't have the guts, Gwen challenged. You never did have the balls to kill anybody. Spidey's spider sense went off once more as Gwen pulled out a gun. You should have killed me when you had the chance, Peter, Gwen hissed as she pointed the gun at him. Now that lovely little child of yours is going to be without a daddy. Gwen slowly pressed her finger against the trigger. Suddenly, a jolt of pain shot through her head. Ah, Gwen hissed. Hurts, Gwen, Peter asked concernedly. Gotta shoot Peter, Gwen hissed through the pain. Must do it. Gwen yelled in pain as she let the gun drop from her hand. No, Gwen screamed. I can't, Gwen, what's happening? Spidey blinked in disbelief as he pulled Gwen to safety. I couldn't do it, Gwen mumbled to herself. I couldn't do it. Gwen felt something warm and metallic drip down her face. Gwen, your nose is bleeding, Spidey pointed out. We need to get you to a hospital. No, Gwen pushed Spidey away. It's too late for me, Peter, leave me. Gwen, no, Spidey yelled. I won't lose you again, come back to me, Gwen, please. Spidey's pleas were no use as Gwen had already blacked out. The Baxter building. Later the rest of the inner circle had been taken into custody while Spider-Man took Gwen to the Baxter building to see whether Reed Richards could revive her. Spidey was presently pacing about nervously. Spidey looked up as the door to Reed's lab opened up and looked at the stretchy scientist with concern. Is she? I am truly sorry, Spider-Man, Reed apologized solemnly. The brainwashing was just too thorough. I dare not do too much at the risk of damaging Ms. Stacy's mind any further. Spidey punched the wall in anger. Damn it. There must be something you can do, Reed. Spidey asked desperately. You're like the smartest guy in the world. You have to do something. Reed placed a comforting hand on Spidey's shoulder. Ms. Stacy has not been subjected to any old brainwashing. There is some kind of magic stopping me from returning her to normal. Then call Dr. Strange. Spidey demanded. He'll know what to do. I have already notified Stephen Strange, Reed explained. But he is unfortunately indisposed for the moment. I will keep Ms. Stacy's body in stasis until he is able to help. All that I suggest is left to do is wait. You should get home to your wife. She will be worried. I will notify you when there are any changes to Ms. Stacy's condition. Spidey sighed heavily. Okay, Reed. You've got it. I may as well enjoy what I already have. Good man. Reed smiled comfortingly. You have my word that you will be the first to know when there is the slightest change in Ms. Stacy's condition. Spidey positioned himself beside the window in preparation to swing away. Spidey turned back to Reed. Reed, thank you. I only wish that I could be of more help. Reed shook his head solemnly. Keep safe, Spider-Man. You too, Reed. Spidey replied. And look after Gwen for me, will you? You have my word. Reed responded. And with that, Spider-Man swung away home to enjoy spending time with his wife. It was a typically quiet morning for the Parkers in their swanky Manhattan apartment. Mary Jane was snoozing on the couch while Peter was preparing breakfast. I love the smell of waffles in the morning, Peter sang. I love the way the maple syrup starts to shine. Peter flipped the waffles in one hand, did a back flip and caught them perfectly on a plate. He then shot out a web line to snag some orange juice and poured it into a glass. MJ, sweetie, breakfast is ready. Peter called. Was Mary Jane mumbled sleepily. Here is your breakfast, madam. Peter smiled as he handed his wife her meal. Waffles. Mary Jane smiled wearily, nummy. You'd better eat them all. Peter reminded her. You're eating for two now, remember? Yes, Peter, I am fully aware of that. Mary Jane rolled her eyes. Peter leapt over the back of the couch and sat down with his own breakfast. It won't be long now. Peter smiled. Just another week or so and we'll be hearing the patter of tiny little feet. No talk. Mary Jane grunted with a mouthful of waffles and maple syrup, eating. Yes, dear. Peter chuckled kind-heartedly. Oh, you do remember that Felicia's coming around to help while I'm at work, remember? Uh-huh. Mary Jane mumbled. Under usual circumstances, inviting one's ex around to look after your pregnant wife wouldn't be a good idea, but Peter and Mary Jane were comfortable enough in their relationship that they knew that Felicia could be trusted. Besides, it wasn't as if the former cat burglar would try to steal Peter away. She was dating the Avenger Wonder Man. Peter quickly finished his breakfast and loaded up the dishwasher. Well, gotta love ya and leave ya, I'm afraid, Peter said as he gave Mary Jane a quick peck on the cheek. I've got the afternoon off, so I should be home anytime after lunch. That's if New York's assorted scumbags and criminals decide to behave themselves. Buy me something pretty. Mary Jane smiled sweetly. Yes, dear. Peter sighed. Toodles. Mary Jane blew her husband a kiss as he went out the door. Now she only had an hour or so until Felicia arrived. Aunt May had left early to go to her wine-drinking lesson, so that left quite some time to kill. Ooh. Lifestyles of the Rich and Heroic is on. Mary Jane remembered. It's a West Coast Avengers special. Mary Jane switched on the TV and sat down to watch her favorite show. Hun. It's a miracle that Tigra can carry off an ensemble like that, Mary Jane said, somewhat bitterly. How does she eat all that junk without it all going to her hips? I have to find out her secret. Later that day Peter's classes had finished for the day and he was on his way home. He had changed into his Spider-Man gear as web-slinging across the city would shave off a considerable amount of time from his journey. Quite unusually for a day in New York, there had not been any crime whatsoever. That just made Peter extra suspicious. When a day was as quiet as this, it usually meant that something extra bad was brewing. Like a bi-monthly visit from the Skrulls or Magneto trashing the city in his latest hissy fit. Sure enough, Peter's spider sense warned him of incoming danger. I knew it was too good to be sure. Spidey muttered as he landed on top of a flagpole high atop a building. Let's see which one of my playmates is up for a party. An electric blast shot out and scorched the spot right next to Spidey's head. Hello, Electro. Spidey sighed. Using that get-out-of-jail card early, I see. I'll fry that Y grin straight off your face, wallcrawler. Electro sneered as he hovered on a field of static electricity. Not if I get there first, the winged villain known as the Vulture added. Oh, hey Toombs. Spidey smiled sweetly under his mask as he gave the octogenarian villain a little wave. But don't you think you'd better get back to the old age villain's home? I think Matlock's on in 5 minutes. He is? The Vulture gasped. We have to get out of here. Hey, wait a minute, Matlock isn't shown on Tuesdays. You're making fun. Glad to see the Parkinson's hasn't caught up with you just yet, old bean. Spidey quipped. Now, can we get this fight over and done with? 'Cause I've got other places to be. Yeah, like the city morgue. Electro snapped as he tried to blast Spidey with another bolt of electricity. Spidey easily dodged the blast. Geez. They always gotta have the last laugh. The web-slinger rolled his eyes as he bounced off the wall and kicked Electro in the face. I thought I was supposed to crack wise. Back at home back at the Parker apartment, Mary Jane was still lounging on the couch while Felicia Hardy doted on her. Now, are you absolutely sure that there isn't anything else I can get you? Felicia asked. Let me see, Mary Jane said as she surveyed the collection of snacks and nibbles laid out around her. Cheesy Doritos, various dips, Diet Mountain Dew, multi-pack of king-size Mars bars, yup. I think I'm good. Oh, wait, could I have my pillow fluffed up a little bit more? You know, there is a limit to my kindness, Felicia sighed as she reached behind Mary Jane's back and fluffed up her pillow. There's no need to worry, Felicia, Mary Jane smiled sweetly. You won't have much longer to carry out my every wish and whim. The baby's due anytime soon. It had darn well better be born soon, Felicia sulked. I had another hot date today. Simon was gonna sponsor me to become an Avenger. Get out. Mary Jane spat out a glob of half-eaten Doritos in surprise. That's real classy, MJ. Felicia rolled her eyes as she picked off the congealed corn products from her front. Sorry. Mary Jane winced. But really, you're gonna be an Avenger? This isn't some ploy just to get into your leather catsuit, is it? This is Simon Williams we're talking about, Felicia pointed out, not Tony Stark. Mary Jane laughed out loud at that, but soon regretted it. Ooh, I shouldn't have had the garlic mayo. Mary Jane winced as she put her hand on her belly. Ow, ow. Felicia stood stock still as he heard Mary Jane's hiss of pain. Mary Jane, I don't think that's bad mayo repeating on you. Mary Jane just gritted her teeth in pain and dug her fingernails into the arm of the couch. Yeah, I think I kinda got that, Mary Jane hissed. Call Peter. But he'll be home soon anyway, Felicia pointed out. Call him. Mary Jane demanded, this time more forcefully. You got it. Felicia winced as she dove for the phone. I just hope he isn't in the middle of a fight with Dr. Octopus or something. Back with Spidey had just leapt out the way of the vulture's wings when his cell phone went off. Hold that butt whooping, Spidey asked as he held out his hand and rifled about for his cell. The vulture and Electro just looked at each other in disbelief. Who dared to interrupt their killing Spider-Man? Yellow. Oh hey, Licia, what's up? Spidey's eyes widened in fear under his mask. MJ's gone into labor. I'll be right there. Spidey put his cell phone away and looked back at the two villains. I know this totally goes against superhero etiquette, but I really have to go. I don't suppose we could postpone this fight for a more convenient time? Electro let off another electric blast. Thought not, Spidey groaned. Back with Mary Jane and Felicia once she had finished her phone call with Peter, Felicia rushed Mary Jane to the hospital. That's where they were now, waiting for everybody's friendly neighborhood Spider-Man to arrive and help his wife through labor. Where is he? Mary Jane hissed through her pain. Peter should be here by now. Knowing the typical Parker luck, he's most probably in the middle of a fight with some villain, Felicia suggested. But I'm sure he'll be here as soon as he kicks their butts. He damn well better be, Mary Jane growled. 'Cause if he isn't, I'm going to have his ass on toast. Lovely mental image there, MJ. Felicia chuckled weakly. Fortunately for Peter's backside, the man in question's son ran into the hospital room. Oh, thank God I made it, Peter panted as he ran up to Mary Jane's bed. You wouldn't believe the day I just had. I would have come sooner, but Electro and the Vulture insisted on trying to kick my butt. But at least you're here, isn't that right, Mary Jane? Felicia asked. Peter, give me your hand, Mary Jane asked sweetly. Peter's spider sense started to tingle, but he just dismissed it as backlash from his fight with the Vulture and Electro. Peter gave Mary Jane his hand, only for her to dig her nails into the skin. Ah, MJ, Peter hissed. What are you doing? It serves you right for being late, Tiger, Mary Jane hissed. I'm sure it's just her hormones going crazy, Felicia reassured him. You're not the one with a gaping wound in your hand, Peter winced. Several hours later, fortunately for the well-being of Peter's hand, it was a blessedly short labor. Mary Jane had calmed down and was holding her newborn daughter in her arms. Peter was sitting next to her smiling adoringly at his new daughter. Felicia and Aunt May were standing nearby pleased as punch for the end parents. Well, Peter, what are you going to call her? Felicia inquired. Well, after careful deliberation, we decided on calling her May after another young woman very close to my heart. Peter smiled as he kissed his daughter on the forehead. Not that I want to burst your bubble, but I don't think the apartment will be able to hold everybody, Aunt May said. It's funny you should say that actually, May, Felicia grinned. But I was able to pull a few strings and get you guys a new place to live. You will have to share it with some other people, but it's still pretty roomy. Well, don't keep us in suspense, Felicia, Mary Jane said. Where is this wonderful new home? Felicia's grin just grew even wider. You're gonna be living in Avengers Mansion. Peter and Mary Jane just looked at each other dumbstruck. Mary Jane was the first to talk. Wow. Avengers Mansion, huh? Just how did you manage to get us a place there? The wonders of dating a charter member, Felicia grinned. Wow. Mary Jane blinked again, hardly believing her ears. Avengers Mansion. I just hope that Captain America's well versed in babysitting. If there's somebody you can trust to babysit your daughter, then it must be the Sentinel of Liberty. Pete nodded. Mary Jane let out a little squeak of excitement. I'm going to actually get to meet the Avengers, yay. The Scarlet Witch in particular. Peter waggled his eyebrows suggestively. Just because I've given birth, it doesn't mean that I can't kick your butt, Mr. Parker. Mary Jane narrowed her eyes at her husband. We'll have no more of that, understand? Peter bowed his head obediently. Yes, ma'am. It was morning in the Manhattan apartment of Peter and Mary Jane Parker. It was an extra special day for the Parkers as they were moving into Avengers Mansion. She-Hulk, who up until recently had been the Parkers' own personal bodyguard, had sponsored Peter for Avengers membership. After a brief discussion, the Parkers had decided to accept the offer. They would be much safer living in Avengers Mansion now. They needed extra protection from Peter's enemies now that they had a baby. Mary Jane was presently sleeping peacefully in bed. Peter had gone to make some last-minute preparations for the big move. Orlando. Mary Jane mumbled in her sleep. Ooh. You have such a big cutlass. Yes, I would love to travel the high seas with you. Why, I'd love for you to bring Johnny with you. 1. Unseen by Mary Jane, a web line shot out and set off the alarm clock on the bedside counter. Mary Jane shot up with a yell as the alarm blared. Wah! Positioned up above her head, on the ceiling, Peter Parker just burst out laughing. BWA ha ha. You should have seen your face, MJ, it was priceless. Mary Jane just glared up at her husband. That wasn't fair, Peter. Mary Jane sulked. I was in the middle of a nice dream. Oh, I bet you were. Peter smirked. Orlando and Johnny, huh? Trez kinky. Just get down here so I can kick your butt, Mary Jane demanded. I'm all right up here, thank you. Peter smiled back innocently. Besides, the limo will be here soon. You don't want to miss that, do you? Mary Jane just crossed her hands over her chest and muttered various curses under her breath. You do realize that this means war. Avengers Mansion, later. A swanky limousine pulled up outside Avengers Mansion. It was followed by a removal van. The chauffeur stepped out and opened the door so the passengers could get out. Mary Jane looked up at the home of the Earth's mightiest heroes. Her gaze was like that of a teenage girl meeting her favorite band. Mary Jane Parker was having a fangirl moment. Oh. My. God, I can't believe we are actually standing outside Avengers Mansion. Just wait until you see the inside. Peter smiled as he put his arm around his wife. Mary Jane hugged baby May closely. Did you hear that, sweetie? Mary Jane cooed to their daughter. We're going to meet the Avengers. The Avengers. Baby May just yawned sleepily. You could at least pretend to be excited. Mary Jane sniffed. I for one would quite like to meet Captain America. Aunt May piped up. It's not every day that you meet a living legend. And that has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that you had a crush on him back in the day, right? Peter teased. Oh, shush. Aunt May swatted Peter on the arm. Don't be so cheeky, you. Peter just chuckled kind-heartedly as he knocked on the door to the mansion. After a short wait, Jarvis, the Avengers' loyal butler, opened the door. Hey there, Jarv. Peter shook the butler's hand with a friendly smile. I believe we're expected. Ah, yes. Jarvis nodded. Masters Stark and Rogers are waiting in the sitting room. If you will follow me. Peter beckoned Mary Jane and Aunt May to follow. Mary Jane looked around at the various pictures on the walls. There were pictures of various incarnations of the Avengers as well as pictures of individual members. One picture in particular caught her attention. It was a picture of the very first team. Thor, Ant-Man, the Wasp, Iron Man in his clunky gold armor, and the Incredible Hulk. Hun. I still can't get over the fact that the Hulk used to be an Avenger. Mary Jane chuckled. And get a load of Iron Man's old armor. It looks like he's wearing a car or something. The guy's changed his armor more times than I've had clones, Peter quipped. You're one to talk, Peter. Aunt May pointed out. Or should I remind you of the many times you have changed your costume? Uniform, not costume. Peter responded. We call it a uniform. Whatever you call it, you still look super sexy in it, Tiger. Mary Jane giggled. There's just one thing that I have to ask. Peter looked at his wife warily. He was partly dreading the question. Do you even wear underwear under that thing? Mary Jane asked. Because, I've never actually seen a visible panty line. No comment. Peter answered quickly. Oh my gosh. Mary Jane laughed out loud. Spider-Man goes commando. I can't believe it, just wait until I tell everybody. Just think yourself lucky that I'm not Wolverine, Peter pointed out, the thought of him going commando. Oh, great. Mary Jane stuck her tongue out in disgust. Thanks for giving me that mental image. I'll be having nightmares for a month now. The sitting room. The Parkers were now gathered in the sitting room with Iron Man and Captain America. Well, it is certainly a pleasure to have you here, Peter, Tony said as he shook everybody's hands. It's about time you joined up officially, huh? I had to think of my family first, Peter replied. I figured that we would be far safer if we moved in with you guys. Jen is already our bodyguard, so we figured moving in here would be even better. I will be more than happy to show you all around the mansion. Cap piped up. I'll ask the others to take up your cases as well, if you want. Hey. We've got the Avengers working for us, Peter. Mary Jane whispered. I wonder if Cap could iron our clothes. I guess there's no harm in asking. Peter shrugged. But you have to ask him. There's no way that I'm going to ask the Sentinel of Liberty to do our chores. Cap turned to Aunt May and kissed her hand. And Aunt May, Peter has told me so much about you. Aunt May put her hand to her mouth to stifle a girlish giggle. She was in heaven. She had never dreamt that she would ever meet Captain America in person. Oh my. I never thought that I'd meet a living legend such as you, Captain. Aunt May tried to restrain a girlish giggle. I can barely believe it now. It's my pleasure, believe me. Cap smiled. I never get tired of meeting my admirers. Just try to keep yourself from leaping at his feet and squealing like a schoolgirl, okay? Peter teased. Oh Peter Parker, you shush. Aunt May tutted. Elsewhere. Somewhere in the Caribbean, a gentleman was reading a newspaper. The headline read, Billionaire Philanthropist Dead. It was announcing the death of Norman Osborn, too. Well. The mysterious man tutted. It looks like dear old Norman has gotten himself killed again. He was always careless like that. The mysterious figure beckoned to his butler. Jeeves, prepare my equipment. I think it is time that I made a comeback. Peter Parker was presently dressed in his Spider-Man gear. He was having an impromptu training session with some of his fellow Avengers. He was joined by Black Cat, Squirrel Girl, and Wonder Man. Mary Jane was watching from the control room with Iron Man. The training session was simple enough. All they had to do was cross from one side of the room to the other. Of course, there were a few obstacles thrown in to try and make the session more challenging. Giant robots, electro nets, the usual stuff. Like I said, it was just a simple training session, nothing too difficult. Peter leapt through an electrified hoop and webbed a giant robot's optic sensors. Wonder Man then followed up with a super strong punch to the robot's chest, smashing a hole in it. Peter then dove under another robot's feet and webbed it to the floor. The robot struggled to free itself, but only ended up falling forwards. Black Cat saw that as her moment to move and leapt onto the subdued robot's head. She then slashed at it with the razor-sharp claws attached to her gloves. Peter was about to swing over to the far side of the room where the button for the shutdown mechanism was. He leapt down on the ground to prepare for another jump, but was met by an angry squeak and a sharp pain in his ankle. There was a small gray squirrel attached to his ankle by its teeth. Tippy-toe. Squirrel Girl squeaked. Are you okay? What about me? Peter frowned under his mask. That thing just bit me. Tippy-toe is not a thing. Squirrel Girl slammed her hand on the shutdown button. She quickly scooped up her rodent friend and cradled her in her arms. Tippy-toe is my closest friend. Well, I sure hope that your closest friend isn't infected with anything. Peter sniffed as he rubbed his ankle. How can you say such a thing? Squirrel Girl glowered. Tippy-toe is clean. A lot cleaner than some people I know. Well, if I end up growing a giant fluffy tail and start to crave nuts, you'll hear from my lawyer, Peter groused. And I thought you would be nice, Spider-Man. Squirrel Girl turned her back and walked away. You're nothing but a big meanie. Peter's mouth hung open. But, Peter turned to Black Cat and Wonder Man. His fellow Avengers weren't even bothering to hide their laughter. Does this bite look infected? Peter groaned as he removed his boot to inspect his wound. Come on, be truthful. I hope you're prepared for winter, buddy. Wonder Man smirked. Better start hoarding your nuts. Peter looked towards the control room for some reassurance from his wife. MJ, the Avengers are teasing me, Peter whined. Tell them to stop. Keep me out of this, Peter. Mary Jane held her hands up in defense. Although, I am kinda particular to the fuzzy tail. It'll give me something to snuggle up to. What? And my studly bod isn't snuggly enough already. Peter tutted. You, Mary Jane Watson, are snuggle mad. Okay. Just a little too much information there, thank you. Black Cat stuck her tongue out with a wince. Although I'd have to agree with the snuggly bit. Et tu, Felicia? Peter Mock sulked as he limped away. I don't need this junk. I'm going out. Later Peter was now swinging across the Manhattan skyline. He really shouldn't have worried so much about that tiny little squirrel bite on his ankle. Sure, it still stung a little and was slightly swollen, but he'd had worse. Peter was so hung up with his squirrel-related injuries that he almost didn't notice his spider sense alerting him to danger. Well, at least I have an opportunity to work off some pent-up anger, Peter muttered to himself as he swung down towards the sound of a woman screaming. Unfortunately, Peter had arrived too late to avert a mugging. Somebody had already beaten him to it. A certain muscular and symbiote-wearing somebody. As if my day couldn't get any worse. Peter sighed as he perched on the side of the alley. What brings you to Manhattan, Brock? I thought that you'd crawled under your rock indefinitely. We are here for the same reason you are, Parker. The sometimes villain known as Venom retorted. This scumbag was trying to steal this woman's purse. We are fighting the good fight now, remember? Yeah, don't remind me. Peter rubbed the bridge of his nose with an exasperated sigh. And besides, Venom continued, we wanted to say goodbye before we leave. We're getting fed up of New York. Too many bad memories. We were thinking of going somewhere like, oh, we don't know, Cleveland? Peter wasn't listening. He was too concerned with the squirrel bite he had received earlier. What's the matter, Parker? Venom smirked. Baby keeping you awake. Peter momentarily forgot that he was talking to one of his most deadly enemies. To tell you the truth, I was bitten by a squirrel earlier. Wait, why am I even telling you this? How do you even know that I have a kid? News gets around. Venom shrugged. Besides, we frequent a bar that She-Hulk has been known to visit, and you know how much she likes to talk. Well, that's just peachy. Peter sighed. Just make sure the guy gets taken in by the authorities. Okay. I have to get back home. We were going to eat his brains. Venom grinned, holding up the unconscious thug upside down by one leg. Please tell me that was a joke. Peter groaned. I really don't need to add one of our infamous brawls to my agenda today. Of course we were joking, Parker. Venom grinned innocently. Why, did you think that we would even dare to eat him? Muggers give us gas. Peter just shook his head and swung away. Perhaps the miscellaneous evildoers that frequented Manhattan would have the common decency to stay in for the rest of the day. Yeah, fat chance. Later still Peter had almost arrived home at the Avengers mansion when his spider sense started to go nuts. Peter barely reacted in enough time to dodge a pumpkin bomb that somebody threw at him. What the? Peter looked upwards to see an all too familiar figure flying above his head atop a bat-shaped glider. It was a figure that Peter hoped that he would never have to see again. Damn it, Norman! Peter hissed as he set off in pursuit of the Green Goblin. Why don't you stay dead? Who said that I was Norman Osborn, Petty-O? The Green Goblin smirked under his mask. Peter's eyes widened in shock. He knew that voice. It was Harry Osborn. But Harry was supposed to be dead. He died from an overdose of the Goblin formula, didn't he? Peter was so caught up in the sudden return of his formerly dead best friend that he didn't notice the hunting spear flying through the air until it was too late. The spear cut straight through Peter's webline, making him plummet down towards the ground. Peter reached out and tried desperately to shoot out another webline. Peter's web shooters just gurgled in protest. He was out of web fluid. Fortunately, Peter was soon saved from being splattered across the sidewalk. Unfortunately, he was saved by a robotic tentacle that was presently wrapped around his neck. Hey, nice to see you, Otto. Peter croaked as he struggled to get free. But couldn't our enmity wait for now? I'm kind of in a pickle. What makes you think that I want to save you, Spider-Man? Dr. Octopus sneered as he dangled Peter over the edge of the roof he was presently perched upon. Has it struck your tiny little arachnid mind that I may be working with these people? To tell you the truth, I was kind of hoping that you weren't. Peter commented. So, what is this? You reforming the Sinister Six? Oh no, it's nothing as paltry as that. A voice seemed to speak from thin air. They're all working for me. Peter struggled to look around him as mist began to swirl around. Oh God. Peter groaned as he realized who tended to appear in swirl of smoke and mist. Not this, not now. What? Aren't you glad to see an old enemy? The mystery figure chuckled. Aren't you glad to see that I'm not dead? Peter could barely believe his eyes. First, Harry Osborn comes back from the dead, as the Green Goblin no less. Then Craven the Hunter cuts his webline. Craven looked pretty well for a guy that blew his brains out with a hunting rifle as well. And now, Mysterio was screwing with his head. Okay Burkhart. What is it this time? 1. Peter sighed in exasperation. Can you at least make it quick? I really have to be someplace else. Oh, I'm afraid that Daniel Burkhart can't be with us right now. Mysterio chuckled evilly. I'm afraid that he had to take a trip. Down a rather long flight of stairs. Peter's eyes widened in surprise under his mask. No not. Oh yes. Mysterio nodded. Quentin Beck is alive and well. Which is more than I can say about you, Spider-Man. Mysterio then sprayed some knockout gas in Peter's face, subduing him enough to carry away. Mysterio rubbed his hands in glee. Now it's time for the real fun to begin. Spider-Man regained consciousness with a groan. Aw, man. What happened? The web-slinger groaned as he rubbed his temple. Peter looked around at his surroundings, or the lack thereof. There was nothing around him but darkness. Well, you've got yourself into one dilly of a pickle, Peter old chap. Peter muttered to himself as he tried to find a way out. Typical Parker luck, I guess. As soon as something good happens, like baby May being born, something really crappy follows soon after. Why don't my bad guys just stay dead? I thought the whole coming back from the dead thing was only for the X-Men. Still tend to babble a lot, Petio. An all too familiar voice chuckled evilly from the darkness. You always did that when you were nervous. God knows why MJ and Gwen liked you so much. What are you doing here, Harry? Peter asked. Why are you working for Mysterio? I thought we fixed everything before you. Before I died? Harry Osborn finished for him. Meh, perhaps so. But being evil is just so much fun. Peter put his hands over his ears and shook his head. This isn't happening. Peter shook his head. This is just a side effect from Mysterio's gas. You're not real. Is that so? Harry smirked as he pulled out a pumpkin bomb from his carry pouch. If I'm not real, then this pumpkin bomb shouldn't blow you to bits. Peter's spider sense warned him just in time and he easily avoided the explosive device that had just been thrown at him. Ah, spoil my fun. Harry sulked. You were always like that, Peter. My father respected you more than he did his own son. Then there was your unbelievable luck with the women. What was up with that? I was the rich, good-looking one. I should have got all the women. Not some gangly nerd in brightly colored long johns. Peter still wasn't listening. This is some sweet get-up you've got here, Beck. Peter called out. But a little unoriginal, don't you think? Try to make Spidey go insane. Please, it never worked before, and it sure as hell isn't going to work now. Oh, don't be such a spoilsport, Spider-Man. Mysterio's voice chuckled from the darkness. I thought you liked a good jape or practical joke? Only when they're funny, jackass, Peter retorted. Now, let me out of here and I'll only beat you up a little bit. I am afraid that I cannot allow you to do that, Spider-Man. A heavily accented Russian voice announced from the darkness. It is because of you that I died, and I want my revenge. Hey, don't forget me, Harry added. If it hadn't been for you, I would still be normal, and not this psycho nut job that I am now. If anybody has beef with Peter, then it should be me. Peter shook his head in disbelief. He didn't want to believe that this was real. If this was one of Mysterio's illusions, he would pay with his blood, and Peter was very sure that it was a fake. What, don't you have a hug for your old dead uncle? Uncle Ben smirked as he held out his arms wide for a hug. It's the least you could do after getting me killed. If you weren't so arrogant, you could have stopped that burglar and I'd still be alive. Oh, No, hell no, this is low even for you, Beck. Peter shook with anger, clenching his gloved fists. I'll make you regret that you ever messed with me. Oh, I don't think so, Wallcrawler. Mysterio remarked. You'll have to find me first. Peter spun around as spotlights highlighted two more figures. Alongside Harry, Uncle Ben, and Craven were Captain Stacy and Gwen. To think I once thought of you as a prospective son-in-law. Captain Stacy tutted. I must have been insane to let a person like you near my little Gwendy. And look where it got me. Gwen shook her head in shame. I'm dead, just like everybody you've crossed paths with. But most of all I pity that poor little unborn baby of yours that you lost. That was the final straw. Losing his unborn daughter was one of the most painful moments in Peter's life. Mysterio was in for a world of hurt after binging that up. Peter lashed out with a fierce yell, smashing his hand through Gwen. Fortunately, this wasn't the real Gwen Stacy. She was still in S.H.I.E.L.D. custody after her stint as Scourge of the Underworld. This Gwen was nothing but a robot copy. Captain Stacy and the others tried to attack, but ended up getting smashed for their troubles. Mysterio, Peter bellowed with rage. I'm coming for you. Peter leapt up through the wrecked robots and swung up towards a control room in which Mysterio stood. Mysterio shielded his face as Peter smashed through the control room window. You've got some nerve. Peter snarled angrily as he webbed Mysterio to the spot. Where do you get off messing with my head like that? Do you get some kind of sick thrill out of screwing with other people's heads? One must make entertainment whenever possible. Mysterio pointed out. It's not my fault that you don't share my sense of humor, Peter. Peter lashed out with a vicious punch, nailing Mysterio right in his goldfish bowl, smashing a great big hole in it. Give me one reason why I shouldn't beat you to a bloody pulp, Peter demanded. Because I do believe that we have company. Mysterio pointed upwards to where several beams of light shone through the windows accompanied by the telltale sound of an Quinjet landing outside. It's the Avengers, Peter. I hope that you don't want them to witness you breaking the most important rule of being a superhero, do you? Peter snarled angrily under his mask. He was sorely tempted to crush Mysterio's neck right there and then, but he just settled for smashing Mysterio's head through the wall. Avengers Mansion. Peter was back in Avengers Mansion now. He was dressed in his civvies. I don't understand how Mysterio was able to know all of that stuff about you, Peter, Mary Jane exclaimed. Cap found out that he bought it off some rogue S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. Peter explained. Why they didn't sell the info to somebody like Hydra or whatever, I'll never know. We can think ourselves lucky that it was only Mysterio. Mary Jane put a comforting hand on her husband's shoulder. Yeah, I guess. Peter sighed heavily. It's just, he knew everything, MJ. About Gwen, about the baby. But Mysterio is safe in jail now, right? Mary Jane replied. We won't be seeing him anytime soon. And it's not like we can get Wanda to make him forget all the stuff he found out about you. Yeah. Peter nodded. Because that we be wrong. We're not the Justice League. Who? Mary Jane asked. Never mind. Peter smiled innocently. Peter walked over to the crib where baby May was sleeping peacefully. Mary Jane peeked over her husband's shoulder and smiled happily. Doesn't she look so peaceful? Not a care in the world. I wish life was that easy. Peter sighed solemnly as he gently stroked his daughter's forehead. Sometimes I wonder whether I'll be a good father to our daughter. Don't you be like that, Peter Benjamin Parker. Mary Jane poked her maudlin husband in the ribs. I know that you will be a great father for May. Now, why don't you turn that frown upside down? Life isn't all doom and gloom, you know. What do you say we head on downstairs? I hear that Tony and Carol are trying to get a game of Monopoly started. Ah. Peter smiled slightly. Nothing makes a guy feel better than a game of capitalist superiority. Just promise me that you won't do the dance, Mary Jane winced. Peter just stuck his tongue out in response. I promise nothing. It was a quiet night in New Jersey. Most of the people that lived in the suburb of New York were happily tucked in their beds. But it was a different story on the city's docks. Several men were unloading an unmarked freighter. They were unloading great big crates with forklifts and cranes. Amongst the miscellaneous workers were Fancy Dan, Montana, and Ox, collectively known as the Enforcers. Fancy Dan was a little short guy who was a master of martial arts. Montana was dressed in a neat dark suit with a bolo tie and cowboy hat. His weapon of choice was a bullwhip attached to his belt. Ox was what you would expect from a man with the name of a big dumb animal. Ox was a muscle-bound brute that preferred to use his fists instead of his head. The trio were making sure that nothing went wrong with the shipment. Well, everything seems to be going to plan. Fancy Dan smirked triumphantly as he looked at his watch, and not one sign of that dumb wall crawl. Montana clamped his hand over his buddy's mouth. Dan, shut up, the whip-toting Texan hissed. You wanna curse us or something? You know that as soon as you say that, we're gonna end up getting caught. Oh, don't be such a jackass, Montana. Fancy Dan rolled his eyes. You guys wait here and keep an eye on things. I'm going for a smoke. Montana muttered to himself as the well-dressed enforcer walked off to have a cigarette. Fancy Dan reached into his pocket and took out an ornately patterned cigarette case. Then he rustled about for a box of matches. He took a cigarette and put it in his mouth. Where'd I put those matches? Dan muttered to himself, patting his jacket and pants. Give you a light, buddy? A voice offered. Fancy Dan looked up to try and see who was talking to him. His eyes widened in surprise and fear as he saw a red and blue figure peering down at him. Fancy Dan was quivering so much that the cigarette fell out of his mouth. Why you? I'm glad to see that you remember me, Dan-o. Spider-Man chuckled as he grabbed the enforcer with a webline and pulled him up to his own eye level. Now, why don't you do me a favor and tell me what you've got in those crates that's so important? What's Fisk up to nowadays? When I heard that he had been let out for good behavior, I knew that he'd be up to some kind of nefarious scheme. I'm not telling you anything, wall crawler, Fancy Dan sneered. Spidey pulled the enforcer close. How about we try that again, or will I have to get nasty? Why you wouldn't dare? Fancy Dan stammered. Why you're a hero. Why you don't do stuff like that? Spidey pulled Fancy Dan even closer. Their faces were practically touching. Wanna bet? A short while later Montana and Ox were still overseeing the unloading of the unmarked ship. Thankfully, everything had gone off without a hitch. Or so it seemed. Hey, where'd Fancy Dan get to? Ox frowned as he looked around for the well-dressed enforcer. Like I care. Montana shrugged. The dude most probably fell in the water and drowned himself. Ox's eyes widened in surprise. Ya don't think. Don't be such a baby. Montana rolled his eyes as he swatted the muscular enforcer on the arm. If Dan did end up in the drink, at least we get a bigger share of the cash. Whatever happened to honor amongst thieves? An all too familiar voice quipped. Ah. It's Spider-Man, Ox yelled. I don't want to go back into jail. I won't go back into the dark place. I won't let you. Ox charged at the crate that Spider-Man was crouched upon. Thankfully, Spidey was too fast and safely jumped out of the way, while Ox crashed through the crate and fell over the edge of the pier into the water. Man. Just when I think that I only end up fighting lame guys. Spidey tutted. Oh wait. That isn't right. You guys are the lamest of the lame. Heck, even the Shocker has more street cred than you. Oh yeah, you keep on joking, wall crawler. Montana sneered as he reached for his bullwhip. You won't be laughing so much when I'm finished with y'all. Bored now. Spidey sighed as he wrapped a webline around the whip-toting Texan's legs. Montana yelped in surprise as he was yanked off his feet. You ain't heard the last of the enforcers, Montana yelled as he struggled to get free. We'll get even, you'll pay. Oh, don't you think that y'all won't pay? Do us all a favor and use your inside voice, okay? Spidey requested as he webbed up Montana's mouth. There, all better. Now to see what all the fuss was about. Spidey hopped over to one of the crates that Ox had smashed open when he charged through it. Amongst all of the shattered wood was a load of high-tech looking weaponry. My. You boys have been very naughty. Spidey tutted as he inspected the crate's contents. I didn't know that Fisk was back in the weapons dealing business. Spidey picked up a chunk of wood that had the ship's point of origin stamped upon it. London, EH. It looks like Fisk has got himself a hidey hole in fair old Blighty. I'd better call old Shellhead. I need the services of a Quinjet. The next day Spidey was now on board one of the Avengers' many Quinjets. I can't tell you how grateful I am for this, Shellhead. Spidey thanked his friend and teammate. I would have paid for a ticket to London myself, but you know how it is. Raising a kid isn't exactly cheap. I don't have any kids, Spidey, Iron Man pointed out. Oh, I'm sure you don't. Spidey smirked cheekily underneath his mask. With all those hot women you've had a one-night stand with, there has to be some unexpected kiddies involved. Iron Man frowned underneath his armored helmet. My social life isn't what's important right now. Are you sure you don't want any help with this? Wilson Fisk isn't exactly a pushover. Oh, please. Spidey snorted. I've been fighting Fatty Fat almost since day one. He's one of my rogues. As much as Daredevil would say otherwise, Chunky has always been one of mine. Well, if you need any help, just give us a call, Iron Man explained. You're one of the Avengers now, and we look after our own. Thanks a load, Shellhead. Spidey patted the armored Avenger on the shoulder. I really appreciate that. Although, I kinda doubt that I'll need your help. Just how difficult could it be to take down Fisk? London. It was early in the morning in England's capital city. Whereas most normal people were tucked up safe in bed, evil doing were afoot in the docklands. Workers were loading up crates onto an unmarked ship. Come on, get a bloody move on, you blokes, the foreman ordered. We're already behind schedule, and you all know how much the boss hates it when we're late. And I think you're about to get a little later, a voice quipped from the darkness. What the bloody hell? The foreman exclaimed in surprise. We got visitors, gun him. Several workers pulled out guns from their jackets and opened fire. Then one by one, their guns began to explode in a burst of flame. Ah, sod it, bollocks. What the bloody hell's going on, air? That would be us. The blonde empath known as Megan explained as she stepped out of the shadows with the rest of her teammates around her. For those of you that don't know us, we're Excalibur. And we're about to take you down. Piss off, Blondie. The foreman sneered. We don't need no heroes here, just run along and get back to the cookin' like a proper woman. Well, that wasn't very nice. The muscular mutant known as Strong Guy shook his head, and here I was thinking that we were living in enlightened times. I say we show this idiot the error of his ways. The former Morlock known as Marrow smirked, passing a bone dagger from hand to hand. I think I've got dibs. Madrox the multiple man pointed out. After all, Amora took out these guys' guns. By all means, Jamie, go ahead. Megan nodded. Wait. Marrow held up her hand for silence. I don't think we're alone. Marrow threw her bone dagger over her shoulder. That was followed by a yell of pain, and the sound of something crashing into a pile of stacked pallets. Ow. Damn it. I mean. Ow, who throws a bone now, really? Megan looked at the red and blue figure sprawled on the stack of pallets. Her eyes widened in surprise when she realized who it was. Spider-Man, what are you doing here, bleeding, by the looks of it? Spidey answered, as he got off the stack of pallets with a grunt. Bad guy's getting away, by the way. I've got him, Madrox exclaimed as he picked up a crowbar that one of the workers had dropped. This was then thrown as the receding form of the foreman, hitting him on the back of the head. Ah, yeah, 10 points, Madrox crowed, punching the air. Amora, meanwhile, was fussing over Spider-Man. Here, let me take care of that for you. The former Asgardian enchantress offered. I can heal that for you. No, it's okay. Spidey pulled his arm away. It's okay. It's only a flesh wound. Not that we're unhappy to see you here, Spider-Man, but why exactly are you here? Megan asked. You're not exactly native to Britain. I busted up a gun-running ring over in New Jersey. Spidey explained. I followed them all the way here to London. Wilson Fisk is out of jail and catching up on lost time. I knew this whole thing smelt rotten. Megan frowned. There's been a rise in organized crime recently. Now we know who's behind it all. So, what do we do now? Strong Guy asked. We gonna team up, or what? Sounds good to me. Spidey shrugged. Just as long as I don't get any bones thrown at me again. Geez. Marrow rolled her eyes. Make one mistake and you end up paying for it the rest of your life. Spider-Man was sitting on board the Midnight Runner, Excalibur's high-tech jet. The little misunderstanding at the docks earlier was sorted out, and the wall crawler was more than happy to tag along with the British super team. They had a mutual enemy in the Kingpin, and they would get the whole mess fixed quicker if they worked together. Spidey spun around in his seat as he looked at all of the high-tech doodads and thingamybobs. Jeepers. This thing makes the Quinjet look like a hunk of crap. Spidey gazed in wonder. I bet it even. Spidey reached out to pull open a little drawer. Oh, yes, cup holders. You guys are the best ever. Somebody really needs to get out more. Madrox leant over the seat and whispered to Strong Guy. So, we got a plan or what? Marrow piped up. This Kingpin guy is supposed to be some kind of badass, right? Megan turned around to regard the former Morlock with a slight frown. Weren't you paying attention in the mission briefing? Megan asked. I explained everything. Marrow scratched the back of her head in confusion. We have mission briefings now? Megan rubbed the bridge of her nose with a heavy sigh. Am I the only one that actually makes any effort to research the villains that we fight? Pretty much. Strong Guy nodded. Usually we just blunder into a fight and kick some butt. It served us well in the past. Megan shook her head and turned her attention back to flying the Midnight Runner. Amora leant over the co-pilot's seat to regard Spidey. I really wish that you'll let me see to your wound. The former Asgardian offered. Your movements may be hampered after Sarah accidentally stabbed you. I'm cool, really. Spidey reassured her. I heal quickly. Okay, not as quickly as Wolverine, but not all of us have fancy schmancy mutant healing factors, bub. Hey, Amora. Madrox leant over the seat with a cheeky grin. You sure that you should be doing that? Don't you think that Forge will get jealous if he finds out that you're hitting on other guys? I am not hitting on Spider-Man. Amora shot Madrox a dirty glare. I am merely offering my assistance. Sure you are. Madrox continued to smirk. Amora sat back down without another word. Perhaps she'd put a nasty enchantment on him later. Maybe something that made parts fall off. Later, Wilson Fisk was sitting in his penthouse office atop one of London's tallest buildings, one that looked over the whole city. You could even see Tower Bridge from the penthouse. The whole room was surrounded by a wall of bulletproof glass that made sure that nobody could force their way in. Fisk frowned to himself as a lackey handed him a list of profits. Oh no, this will not do at all. Fisk shook his head. This will not do at all. Profits are down thanks to that accursed Spider-Man and the rest of his heroic ilk. The lackey flinched away in fear, anticipating imminent admonishment from the colossal crime lord. It looks like I'll have to employ some extra help in this matter. The lackey looked up at Fisk, his face suddenly pale. You don't mean... Not... him? Oh, yes. Fisk smiled evilly. Him. The Slaughtered Lamb was one of London's most notorious public houses. It was well known as a hideaway for the city's less savory inhabitants. One such inhabitant was Johnny Swindle. Johnny had a rap sheet a mile long. He had dropped out of school at a young age and had been in and out of prison since then. Johnny mostly dealt with stolen goods and the sale of information. Johnny staggered out of his local pub, a little worse for wear after drinking a few too many beers. Johnny propped himself up against a wall and rustled haphazardly in his pocket for a cigarette. All he found was an empty packet. Bollocks. Johnny hissed drunkenly as he dug his hands back into his pockets to find some spare change for the cigarette machine. No such luck. Great bloody night this is turning out to be. Well, you know what people say, things can only get better. Johnny jumped at the sudden voice and lost his footing on the pavement, falling into the gutter. The sound of gloved hands applauding came from the shadows. Oh yeah. Real classy, buddy. The mystery voice taunted. The Royal Ballet won't be missing you. Piss off. Johnny spat out in response. You come any closer, and I'll kick her bloody bollocks in. Wow. You Brits sure do have a wonderful way with words. Spider-Man quipped as he moved into the light, hanging upside down from the nearest lamppost. Shakespeare, eat your heart out. What the bloody hell? Johnny shook his head, as if he were seeing a mirage. What's Spider-Man doing, air? He's a bloody Yank superhero. Oh, I'm just going out on my first world tour. Spidey quipped. And I heard you're good at tours. Johnny went to get his knife from his jacket, but ended up having his hand pinned to the wall by a well-aimed bone dagger. You call that a knife? Marrow smirked as she walked out of the shadows with the rest of Excalibur behind her. The former Morlock reached behind her back and pulled out an even bigger bone knife. This is a knife. Johnny whimpered in fear as Marrow held the bone knife to his throat. Now, are you gonna tell us where the Kingpin is holed up, or will I have to start cutting? You wouldn't. Johnny stammered nervously. You wouldn't kill me. You blokes are heroes. You don't kill, it ain't allowed. I'm sure we can afford to be lenient in this case. Megan added as she knelt down beside Johnny and gazed at him with a terrifying piercing stare. That was all it took. Johnny blabbed all of the information that Excalibur needed. Everybody had the information they needed. Spidey strung Johnny up with some webbing attached to a lamppost. You're gonna let me go soon, ain't ya? Johnny whimpered as he hung upside down, gently swaying in the night breeze. Right. Spidey and the others didn't reply as they slunk back into the shadows. Elsewhere, a white-gloved hand picked up a ringing cell phone and spoke into it. Oh, hey. I haven't heard from you for ages. Oh no, I'm not particularly busy. Just hanging out in jolly old England. There was the sound of a sickening crack as a body fell to the floor. What was that? Oh, nothing much. Just having a little fun. I take it you've got a little pest control problem. Yeah, of course. That's why you're talking to me. Usual fee. Great. See you soon. The cell phone was switched off and put back into a pocket. A random scumbag struggled up from the ground. He didn't last very long, as he was put back down by a playing card embedded in his throat. A white target glinted in the darkness. Bullseye. Mary Jane Watson Parker was knelt beside a baby-changing mat that was laid out on the floor beside her bed. She was changing Lil May. There, all done. MJ smiled triumphantly as she held up her newly changed daughter. Don't you feel just snuggly warm and soft? THBBPT. Little May exclaimed, blowing a spit bubble. Now, that is just disgusting. Mary Jane tutted as she grabbed a tissue and wiped her daughter's mouth. How about we go say hello to Uncle Cap and everybody else, huh? Glurful blub. Little May gurgled in glee as Mary Jane picked her up. That's what I thought. Mary Jane smiled as she carried her baby daughter out of the bedroom and headed downstairs, where the rest of the Avengers would be waiting. Mary Jane's husband, Peter, was off doing his superhero thing in London. That then gave Mary Jane a little time to hang out with her gal pals and do some sorely needed shopping. She and Felicia had been planning a big shopping trip for quite some time now, but having a baby nearly put a damper on any such plans. Mary Jane was sure that Aunt May would be more than happy to look after little May. Mary Jane smiled in greeting as she walked into the kitchen and saw Captain America talking to Aunt May and Jarvis, the Avengers' butler. Good morning, Mary Jane. The Sentinel of Liberty nodded in greeting. You look well today. Thanks, Cap. Mary Jane smiled in response. You look handsome and studly, as always. Edwin and I are almost ready to start serving breakfast, dear, Aunt May told the redhead. I hope you like waffles. You know I do, May. Mary Jane grinned. Your waffles are the greatest, your waffles bring all the Avengers to the yard. And you're like, these waffles are better than yours. Flurbleglub. Little May giggled as she tried to make a grab for Captain America's shield. Now, May. Mary Jane admonished her young daughter. That shield isn't a toy. You don't know where it's been. Upside the Red Skull's head, more often than not, Cap pointed out with a slight chuckle. See what I mean? Mary Jane asked her daughter. You don't want the icky taste of Nazi in your mouth, do you? Little May scrunched up her face in disgust. THBBPT. Later, Mary Jane was now out shopping with Felicia Hardy, aka the former cat burglar known as Black Cat. Aunt May was looking after Lil May back in Avengers Mansion. Mary Jane couldn't have brought Little May along with her. Carrying a baby would have hampered her ability to shop. Do you think we should go buy some new shoes? Mary Jane thought out loud. Or do I have enough shoes already? You can never have too many shoes, MJ. Felicia advised her friend with a smirk. I say we go splurge. Then splurge I shall. Mary Jane matched her shopping companion's grin and headed straight for the nearest shoe store. Unfortunately, the two women never got to buy themselves many more pretty things, as a nearby explosion knocked them to the floor. Felicia was the first one to her feet. MJ. Are you okay? MJ. Talk to me. Did anybody get the number of that truck? Mary Jane mumbled as she fixed her hair. What the hell was that anyway? Felicia looked in the direction of a guy dressed in a brown and yellow quilted suit. The shocker happened. The former cat burglar pointed out. Oh, he is going down. Mary Jane growled as she got to her feet and picked up a string bag of oranges that she had dropped. MJ, be careful. Felicia warned her. Don't worry. Mary Jane reassured her friend with a quick grin. This won't take very long. Mary Jane spun the bag of oranges around her head as if it was a bola. Hey Shocker, heads up. The vibro gauntlet-wearing villain spun around to look at the woman who had just shouted at him, and ended up getting knocked out with a bag of oranges to the face for his troubles. Yow. That was hardcore, MJ. Felicia winced. Bit of a waste, though. Yeah, I guess. Mary Jane shrugged. I suppose I'll have to get more oranges, huh? Back at Avengers Mansion, Mary Jane was now back at Avengers Mansion. She had unpacked all of the goodies that she had purchased and put them away in the closet. She was sitting on the couch, bouncing little May on her knee. Oh, you should have been there, Felicia laughed as she recounted Mary Jane's fabulous defeat of the Shocker. MJ was all I'll bash you good and the Shocker was all, oh noes. I didn't understand a single word you said there, Felicia. Captain America shook his head. Having trouble keeping up with the young uns and their slammin' slang, Cap. She-Hulk teased the Star-Spangled Avenger. Don't you have a man-wolf to go hit on? Wanda asked the Jade Giantess. Et tu, Scarlet Witch. She-Hulk sniffed as she got up off her seat and sauntered away. Bye-bye, May. Bye-bye, bye-bye. She-Hulk cooed down at little May as she walked past the baby. Glubba flubba ub. Little May waved her pudgy little hands in the air. Ah, isn't she the cutest thing? Wanda smiled at the little baby. I wish I had a baby. Captain America spat out his coffee in surprise. He then clutched his throat as he started to choke on the coffee. Steve, are you all right? Wanda asked concernedly, patting her lover on the back. I don't think Cap's ready to have kids just yet, Wanda. Felicia pointed out. He most probably wants to wait until after you guys get married. That made Cap spit his coffee out in surprise and started to cough again. You know, Cap. Wonder Man snickered. I doubt Jarvis'll appreciate you spitting coffee all over his nice clean coffee table. I'd like babies, too. Felicia smirked as she gave her female friends a cheeky wink. Wonder Man jumped up in surprise and fell over the back of his chair. Now, that was just cruel. Mary Jane didn't even bother to hide her laughter. Cruel, but damn funny. Spider-Man and the representatives from Britain's very own superhero team known as Excalibur materialized on the roof of one of London's many skyscrapers. OOG. Now I remember why I don't like teleportation. Spidey groaned and held his stomach as he tried to steady himself. I never knew you Americans could complain so much. The blonde empathic metamorph known as Megan sighed. Anyway, on to business. The pointy-eared blonde turned to her teammates. Amora, could you cloak us with a spell, or something? There are bound to be security cameras and stuff all around this place. We don't want Fisk to spoil our surprise, do we? Way ahead of you, Megan. The Asgardian enchantress nodded with a smile. She waved her hands and chanted in an odd language, pink sprackles covering the heroes. From now on, we will all be undetectable by technological means. The only way that Wilson Fisk will be able to see us is when he sees us with his own eyes. By that time it will be too late. Excuse me for asking a stupid question. Madrox piped up, holding up her hands. But how exactly will we get inside to find Fisk? Everybody winced as they heard the sound of a door being torn away from its moorings. Strong Guy was holding the roof access door in his hands. How else? The super strong mutant grinned proudly. We're gonna use the door. I thought this was supposed to be a sneak attack. The former Morlock known as Marrow stated. Fisk might not be able to see us, but he can still hear us. Strong Guy hid the broken door behind his back, as if such a move would make everybody forget that he had just ruined their plans for a sneak attack. Whoops, inside fortunately enough, Strong Guy having just torn a door off its hinges hadn't alerted any guards to Spidey and Excalibur's presence. The sextet of heroes carefully made their way through the building to where they hoped that Wilson Fisk had hidden himself. Not that I want to jinx this or anything. Spidey whispered to the group. But I have a bad feeling about this. It's too quiet. What's the matter, Spidey? Madrox smirked. You scared? No, Spidey shot back. I was just trying to think of my wife and child. They'd be pissed if I ended up getting taken out like a rookie. You're married? Jamie blinked in surprise. I always thought you were gay? The same thing could be said about us, Jamie. Strong Guy pointed out. Didn't we always used to hang out back in the good old days of X Factor? You're not helping, Guido. Madrox groaned. Why do we always have to fight on holiday? Strong Guy teased in a mock camp voice. Will you guys keep it down already? Megan hissed at her bickering teammates. If Guido yanking the door off its hinges didn't blow our cover, your bloody bickering would have. Sorry, ma'am. Jamie mumbled, bowing his head. Won't happen again, ma'am. Guido mumbled also. You guys all fill me with so much confidence. Mero grumbled. I can already tell that I'm going to enjoy this mission as much as I enjoyed the Christmas edition of EastEnders. Will you please be quiet? Megan tried to hush the former Morlock. Besides, everybody knows that the Christmas editions of EastEnders reached their peak when Dirty Den gave Angie those divorce papers. I have no idea what you people are talking about. Spidey frowned. Is this some British thing that we foolish Americans wouldn't understand? Join the club, Spidey. Madrox agreed. I've never liked EastEnders. I'm more of a Coronation Street man, myself. Elsewhere Wilson Fisk, aka the rotund kingpin of crime, strolled around his penthouse office without a care in the world. Fisk opened up his drinks cabinet and took out a bottle of expensive-looking scotch. BAMF. The bald-headed villain smirked as he saw the reflection of Spider-Man and his friends teleporting behind him in the glass of his drinks cabinet. I knew it was only a matter of time before you found me, Spider-Man. The criminal mastermind nodded in greeting as he poured himself a drink. May I interest you in some refreshments, or are we to get straight down to business? I never drink when I'm on duty, Spidey retorted, crossing his arms. Even if I did, I doubt that I'd drink with somebody like you. Pity. Fisk sniffed as he took a sip of his scotch. It's quite a good vintage, not easy to come by. Okay, that's enough pleasantry. Megan pointed an accusatory finger at the kingpin of crime. We're here to take you down. I am afraid that I will have to disagree with you there. Fisk shot back. You see, I have become quite fond of London, and I doubt that all of you will be able to make me leave. Bring it, Captain Chunky. Madrox challenged. We can take anything that you give us. I was hoping you'd say that. Fisk smiled as he pressed a button on the underside of his desk. Spidey and the representatives from Excalibur all turned to see a painting hanging on one of the walls, along with a portion of said wall, turn around to reveal an all too familiar black and white clad figure. Long time no see, Spidey. Bullseye saluted the web-slinger. I wish that I could say that it was a pleasure to see you again, but we'd both know that I was lying, wouldn't we? Dude. Bullseye. Strong Guy piped up. Say, I want a bloody costume. Go on, it would be sweet. Bullseye blinked for a moment, before composing himself and getting down to the business at hand. This is where I kill you now. No, I don't think so. Amora shook her head. All of the paperclips and playing cards in the world cannot save you from the might of the Enchantress. Bullseye was about to grab a pencil up off the desk and throw it at the blonde sorceress, when magical energy shot out from his intended victim's hands. The psychotic assassin yelped in surprise as he felt himself shrink and start to grow fur all over his body. Oh, now that wasn't any fun at all. Spidey tutted at the sight of Bunny Bullseye. What happened to the fight scene? I wanted a fight scene. We still have Fisk to take care of. Megan reminded him. He's all yours. It'll have to do, I suppose. Spidey sniffed. Geez. People would think that this is uncanny Excalibur, not uncanny Spider-Man. Later the Kingpin had been webbed up and handed over to the authorities after a big fight. The enchantment that Amora had put on Bullseye would wear off in a few hours, so he was handed over to the police as well. Spider-Man was saying goodbye to Excalibur. Well, it's been fun teaming up with you guys. The wall-crawler stated. Kinda surreal, but fun. Story of our lives, I guess. Megan chuckled. You should have been here when my nutter of a brother-in-law turned the Tower of London into a bouncy castle. Man, that was as much fun as an old-school Crossroads marathon. Mero rolled her eyes. Hey, stop making fun of my favorite shows, Megan responded. There's nothing wrong with old-school Crossroads. It's lame beyond the telling of it, Mero pointed out. How can you possibly enjoy crap like that? I like Crossroads for its kitsch value. Megan sniffed defensively. Amora chose to swiftly change the subject. May we offer you a lift home? She offered. It would be no bother at all. I'm in no hurry to leave just yet, thanks, Spidey responded, shaking his head. I doubt that the missus would appreciate it if I came to London without picking up something tacky for her. Now, where can I get me one of those silly Union Jack hats like Joey had in that episode of Friends? Peter looked up at the huge building that towered above his head as the chauffeur-driven car headed into the parking garage. To tell you the truth, the infamous superhero would have felt more comfortable making his own way there in a cab, but Tony Stark wasn't having any of it. The millionaire had kindly lent Peter the services of his own personal chauffeur. He unbuckled himself as the car came to a stop and the chauffeur opened the door so he could get out. We have arrived, sir. The chauffeur announced. Thanks, Jeeves. Peter nodded in thanks. So, where's Shellhead? Is he gonna give me the tour, or do I have to make my own way around? Mr. Stark will meet you in his office. The chauffeur explained. It is on the second to last floor. Thanks again, Jeeves. Peter smiled as he gave the chauffeur a pat on the back in thanks. You're a lifesaver. And with that, Peter headed off in the direction of the nearest elevator, or where he believed the nearest elevator to be. Sir, the elevators are the other way, the chauffeur pointed out. Peter walked back past the chauffeur and smiled nervously. I knew that. Stark's office. Thankfully, it didn't take Peter very long to find Tony Stark's office. He only had to stop to ask for directions twice. He was presently sitting in a plush leather chair in front of Stark's desk. I'm glad that you could make it, Peter. Tony smiled. I hope you didn't get too lost. Nothing that a map and a team of Sherpas couldn't fix, Peter quipped. I dare say that you'd like to see your new workspace. Tony guessed. I think you'll like it. You'll be working in the tech division. Sounds like fun. Peter nodded in understanding. Just as long as I'm not some nameless grunt working telesales. We don't have telesales here, Peter, Tony pointed out. Yeah, I know that. Peter responded. It's just a point I was making. What sort of unspeakable evil could have come up with something like that? I bet it's Doom's new master plan. He's planning on conquering the world by annoying people to death with people trying to sell them insurance over the phone. Tony just stared blankly back at Peter. What? Peter asked innocently. It could happen. You never know what Doom's up to next. I think it's time that you met the others. Tony quickly changed the subject. Tech Division. Peter and Tony had donned protective goggles and white lab coats before they entered the technological development area. You could never tell what sort of things the boffins were working on. The wall crawler winced as he saw a crash test dummy holding an umbrella over its head. One of the lab technicians was standing atop a stepladder, pouring water from a watering can onto the umbrella. No sooner had the water touched the umbrella, then the device snapped closed around the dummy's head, completely severing it. That's still got a few bugs to work out, Tony explained as he led Peter onwards. Next was a female lab technician who was seemingly applying some lipstick. Peter watched as the woman pointed the lipstick at a target hung on the wall. A laser beam shot out and nailed the target dead center. Nick Fury commissioned those for his female agents, Tony pointed out. Peter nodded. I think MJ would love one of those, the younger hero grinned. Peter stopped beside a desk and held up what seemed to be an ordinary run-of-the-mill pen. What does this do? Peter asked as he inspected the pen closely. Does it turn into a miniature grenade? Oh, does it squirt acid from the tip? It's a pen. Tony answered. You write things with it. Peter let out an impressed whistle. Wow, what will you guys think of next? Later Peter had finished his tour and was sitting behind his desk in his own office. It seemed that Peter was now head of the tech division of Stark Enterprises, which suited him just fine. He had already had a conversation with Mary Jane about the sudden rise in pay. As much as Peter liked living in the mansion with the rest of the Avengers, he would have preferred it if he had a place of his own. Peter had always been a loner at heart, and preferred to be a solo hero. Although, it was nice to have other people watching his back on occasion. Being a member of the Avengers had done wonders for Spider-Man's reputation as well. The Daily Bugle hadn't printed anything bad about him in, a good few weeks. Unfortunately, as the new head of the tech division, it also meant that Peter had other people to do all the work for him. He was already starting to get bored. Peter picked up the phone and put in a call to his secretary. Karen, has there been any calls for me? Peter asked. Mr. Parker, you've only been in your office for an hour. Karen told him. You wouldn't have any calls this soon. Oh. Right. Peter sighed. You'll let me know as soon as I get a call, won't you? That is my job, Mr. Parker, Karen replied. Is that everything? I think so. Peter scratched his head nervously as he eyed the window. I'm going to head out for a while. I've got to meet somebody for lunch. But it isn't even lunchtime. Karen responded, but there was no reply. Mr. Parker, are you still there? A short while later, Spider-Man let out a sigh of relief as he swung across the Manhattan skyline. Luckily, there was a hidden room in his office that could be used to hold a spare costume. It was a lot better than getting changed in a utility closet. It was a lot less likely that anybody would walk in on him too. Spidey came to a rest upon a stone gargoyle. He wasn't lying when he said that he had to meet somebody for lunch, he just didn't say who that person was. Something bothering you, Peter? A voice inquired as somebody landed on a ledge beside him. It was Daredevil, the man without fear, one of Spider-Man's occasional tag partner. Is your new job that bad? How do you know that I've got a new job? Spidey asked. Simple really. Daredevil explained. You smell the same as the leather that Tony Stark uses in the chairs in his executive offices. I'm a lawyer, I sometimes do business with Stark. Spidey frowned behind his mask. Has anybody ever told you that it's really annoying when you use your super senses on people? Daredevil just laughed at that. Is there something that you wanted to talk to me about, or did you just want somebody to listen while you had your monthly rant? Spidey glared at the crimson-clad man without fear. Did you want the turkey or beef? Spidey asked as he held up a couple of paper bags. Turkey, please. Daredevil answered. You did remember to get diet soda this time, didn't you? Yes, I did remember to get you diet soda. Spidey sighed. The old ladies still got you on a diet, huh? Oh yeah. Daredevil nodded as he took the sandwich. No sugary goodness for me. So, which one are you dating this week? Spidey smirked. Elektra, Black Widow, Echo, or that woman you married but then divorced because you went a bit crazy and named yourself Kingpin of Crime? Sometimes I don't know myself. Daredevil frowned slightly. It's Friday today, isn't it? Yup. Spidey nodded. Aunt May makes wheat cakes on Fridays. They're the coolest. You and your flavor of the week are welcome to come over and try some sometime. I think I'm dating Elektra this week. Daredevil remembered. I noticed that you were favoring your right arm. Spidey nodded. Did you pull a muscle during sexy time or something? A gentleman never kisses and tells. Daredevil answered cryptically. Come on man, the world wants to know. Spidey continued. Those Greek X-hand ninjas are supposed to be devils in the sack. Daredevil cast Spidey a weary glare, and you couldn't have called the Human Torch because he smells like baby sick. Spidey told his companion. And trust me, I know what baby sick smells like, it ain't pretty. Daredevil was about to say something in reply when his radar sense alerted him to danger. Spidey's spider sense did the same. So much for a quiet first day at work. The web slinger sighed. Spidey tossed his sandwich on the ledge and swung away on a web line. Let the birds have his sandwich, he didn't like beef all that much anyway. The end. Now we will see you in the next video.